That means we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show of today's 220-1102 A+ study group. Today, I will be asking you questions from the CompTIA exam objectives. That's our first hour. In the second hour, I will take your questions. So there's questions all around. This is the pre-show. We're sort of getting things going here, making sure the stream is working. It is. Hello, chat room. I see you folks are in there already. Paul's already checked in from Northern Virginia. Thanks for being here. And thanks, everyone, for being here. If you're watching this in real time, we'll get started in about 9 minutes or so. And if you are on the replay, we still get started in 9 minutes. I'm not sure how that changes anything. Although you can modify time. You can compress time and space and jump ahead if you want to. But I think we have some interesting conversations in the pre-show. Let's see if we can clear things up here. Let's double check. Recordings are going. Here's my, you can't see both of the Cylons, but I have two recordings going down here on my video recording system. We've got live stream here. I can just see the cache percentage. I need to move my boom around to see that a little better. That looks a little bit better. That's the number I'm always looking at. You can hardly see it here, but it's the one right here. 3% is what I'm looking at. That's what the cache on my streaming system is set to. And if that cache gets bigger, that tells me that something is not working right. That's my first warning. Actually, the chat room is usually my first warning. And then that's my second warning. Usually how it works. Eric with the super chat, like first thing. Eric says, almost done with Network Plus videos. You're getting near the end. It seems like that was a short course to put together, but it was so chock full of content that it probably is one of the meatier, the more detailed, the denser training systems, especially if you've never worked with networking. It can be almost ridiculous, the amount of content that's squeezed into Network Plus. But if you take it a bite at a time and just kind of separate it out, it all tends to make sense. Eric, thank you for the support. We sure appreciate the super chat, and best of luck with the rest of your Network Plus studies and the Network Plus exam eventually. We'll figure it out. Hello, West Virginia and Virginia. Lots of going on there. We've got the Bahamas checking in. Hello, David. Thanks for being here. Other folks that are, feel free to get into the chat room. It is the YouTube chat that I am looking at. That's the one that's right here. You can see the things going by, the colorful super chat that we had from Eric. That is the YouTube chat, which is also the chat that I have embedded onto my website at professormesser.com/live. So regardless of where you're watching this, it's the same chat. So I'm getting all of my questions from there to be able to use all of those things. And look at that, just like that. See the dip? Can you see the dip right there? It's like I willed it to occur. It's like I willed Google to not take any of the video and bring it through. And of course, Roy in the chat room, as I said, my first warning is the chat room, and my second is to look over and see, oh yeah, you totally went down right there. So that's kind of normal for YouTube these days for some reason. I'm not sure what they're doing, why they're thinking that way, but we'll keep doing what we're doing here. And I, of course, have a recording locally. So if things go really off the rails, we can always pull that back a little bit. We'll figure it out. Hello, Maryland. Thanks for being here. We've got a lot to go through. YouTube still says I'm poor. I'm poor. See the yellow? It's kind of hard to see from where you are. Well, we'll do this. That's where YouTube says poor. How's the network connection? Oh, it's excellent. Thanks for asking. Glad it worked out. Thanks, YouTube. Thank you for that. Oh, of course, it could be my local provider. It could be my local internet provider, too. They could be the ones poking me. We just never know. Well, we do know, but we'd have to put some analysis tools on the network and perform some packet captures and et cetera, et cetera. There are ways to tell. I've got my MTR ready. I've got my ping testing going. I can do some trace routes. We got a lot we can do. MTR is the one I use the most because I'm in Mac OS. Is there an MTR for Windows? There's got to be a Win MTR, right? Certainly. If you've never used MTR, it's kind of like having a trace route and a ping put into a single view that just constantly does it over and over and over so you can see where the problems are. Is a fantastic utility. And if you have 5-minute warning, and if you have a chance to run MTR, if I was to run it, I think I ran MTR a few times on here. Where's my iTerm? We'll bring it up. So you won't be able to see. We'll see. This is the pre-show, so we can do this, right? Let's do me in the corner. That's me in the corner. I need to sudo this one, MTR, and we'll do it to quad 9. 9.9.9.9. And here is MTR. I know my head's in the way, so you can basically get it. It's a trace route on this side. It is how much traffic is going back and forth to all of these on this side. There is a router, and this has been bothering me for a while in Marietta, that does not tend to reply back to all of the ICMP messages. It does not send them as quickly. It's like you have to get, they must have some type of timer or delay on the initial ICMP replies or anything that's ICMP related, because once it hits, it keeps going. It's as if there is an ARP there that takes, although we're still losing packets, we're still increasing there quite a bit. So I don't know what it is with that. I should probably just have reset my router and hoped for the best. One never knows. We'll figure it out. We got 3.5 minutes to go till we get started. This is the pre-show of what we're doing. I guess I should get my act together. Why start now? Why do that now? What was I thinking? Is there a WinMTR? I'm pretty sure there's a WinMTR. I know I've seen it before. It's not something I dreamed. It could totally be something I dreamed. But I'm pretty sure I saw it. That gives you some insight into my mind during the sleeping hours, is that I dream about network utilities. Well, as it turns out, I do dream about network utilities. We are still pretty good, though. Do I have a Discord? I do at professormesser.com/Discord. There you go. That was easy. I love those questions. We do talk about it here eventually. And there's someone at my front door. I always like that. Perfect timing. They were waiting for me to see what was going on. Let's see who it is. I can sneak a look over on my mobile device, and it is who knows? Maybe it was somebody picking something up. No, it's the post office. So good. Not a problem. We're in good shape. We got a lot to go through today. I have all brand new questions. They're all for the 1102 exam, which is the newer exam. So this should be pretty good. I'm surprised somebody hasn't filled me in on the WinMTR yet. It's got to be there, right? And any ETA on the N10008 practice exams, I can only say that I hope to have some available in the coming months. There you go. So there's never any specific date. The date is whenever it gets done, and that's the date. So, okay, WinMTR's in SourceForge. Do not go to SourceForge, but go somewhere else and get WinMTR, or just don't use that. So that was at least somewhat of an idea. Hey, Joe with the super chat, no message, just Joe and his icon saying for $4.99. Here's your super chat. Here's a little something. Thank you, Joe. We appreciate that. Thank you for your support. And all in the pre-show. We haven't even started technically yet, but Joe's already in there. He is committed. And thank you so much, Joe, for all of that. I like the comment that SourceForge fixed its issues. I guess it's the fact they had issues to begin with that is what leads me to be suspicious of them, and rightfully so. And you should as well. So I don't believe anybody fixes their issues just by getting rid of whatever the problem was. I think they got rid of whatever the problem was, but did they fix their issues? I wonder. Malk made it on time, Malk. Did you set an alarm this time? It's okay. You can come in whenever you'd like. You can show up 15, 30 minutes late. You can watch the replay. Doesn't matter to me. You're good. Either way, he did set an alarm. Oh, that's great. We appreciate that. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's very kind. We have Q&A. So let's get this going here. We got about 20 seconds until we get started. I should probably turn on my presentation here. Oh, it's still in presentation mode. Did you see that? That was great. I didn't have to push a button. So my life is so much better now that I did not have to push two buttons. We'll figure this out. We've got top of the hour. Ding, there it is. So I think now it's time that we should get the live stream started. Hopefully I have a graphic sitting right there. That looks good. So let's do the title. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2022 Professor Messer 220-1102 A-plus study group. This is the A-plus study group that we do every month, where I ask you questions that come directly from the 1102 A-plus exam objectives, and you can answer online to see just how well you think you may have done with all of that. The way that you can participate, if you are here live, is you can pop open a new browser window and go to the link right here at the bottom of your screen, professormesser.com/QA. That's the link that will give you a question. There's even a question waiting for you right now. That's on there. We also have an app that you can use, because of course we do. Everyone should. Or should they? We'll find out. Go to the Socrative student app is what you want to download from your favorite app store. Make sure you get the one that is the student app for Socrative, because there is a teacher app. That's the one for me. When you start that up and use the app and get it going and presents all the splash screens, and you get finally to the app part, it will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. That will get you exactly where you need to be to answer questions that are available on that app or from that web page. The first question we have there is what we call a rewind question, because it was a question from last month that we used to see if you're able to get into the system, you're able to answer the questions. And here is the question. It asks, a technician is troubleshooting a problem on a Windows computer. Which of the following would provide the technician with the time since the last restart? Would that be Task Manager, Services, SFC, Reg Edit, or Time and Language? Is it Task Manager, Services, SFC, Reg Edit, Time, and Language? We'll find out in a moment. We'll come back to that. In the meantime, if you'd like to answer, simply visit that URL on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Please no hints in the chat room. Please no answers in the chat room. We're all going to answer this online. And if you are watching this on the replay, just keep in mind what you think the answer should be. And we'll come back to this in just a moment. We've got a lot to talk about. There's all kinds of things happening here all the time. There's plenty that we're doing. And if you'd like to keep track of what we're doing, you can join us on YouTube. Feel free to subscribe there at professormesser.com/YouTube. Or if you like this video, we'd love for you to give it a thumbs up. It really helps us a lot with the folks over at YouTube. We also have a daily pop quiz question for A+. You can find that at professormesser.com/Twitter. We also have a pretty picture version of the daily pop quiz question at professormesser.com/Instagram. That can give you also an archive of questions to go back to on our daily pop quiz. It's a great place to go, and you might want to join those as well. We have 2 A+ exams, or 2 editions of A+ exams that you could possibly take as we sit here in August of 2022. Those 2 exams will start with the first or earlier version of these exams. That edition is the 220-1001 and the 220-1002. These were released in January of 2019, way back in the day. Remember 2019 when we thought we knew what the world was like? I do. And a lot has changed since then. But also the A+ has changed since then. And in fact, this version of the exam, these editions, will disappear from the world completely on October the 20th of 2022. Those are the exam retirement dates. So the last day you would be able to take the 220-1001 and 220-1002 is going to be October the 20th. So you should already think in your mind about your studies, think about which version of the exams you're planning to take, and think about, am I going to complete both of these exams by October the 20th? Because that's the date you have to finish both of them, not one of them. You have to finish both of them to be A+ certified. The exams themselves, both of them are 90 minutes long. You could get on the exam, you need to get a score of 675 on the 1001. And on the 1002, you need a 700 score. And these are on a scale from 100 to 900. Now, even if you take the exam now, even though the exam retires in October, your certification is still good for 3 years. So if you are If you've been working on this version of the exam, you've been studying for a while, you've maybe already finished one of these exams and you're working towards the second one, keep doing that because you have until October. And even if you finish the second exam on the October the 20th, you are A+ certified for 3 years. So that's an important consideration. There is a newer edition of these exams called the 220-1101 and the 220-1102. These were released in April of this year, which means they'll retire somewhere around November of 2025. So that is why if you are just starting your studies in A+, you might want to look into these exam versions, the 1101 and 1102, because those exams are newer and will be around for much longer. I would hate for somebody to go through the process of studying and maybe even passing one of the exams and then run out of time, and then you just have to start all over again. So if you are someone who is just starting, that's what you would like to use. This 1101 and 1102. The exam requirements are identical. In fact, a lot about the exams is exactly the same. If you were to look through the exam domains, they are also letter by letter exactly the same as the 1001 and 1002. However, don't think that this means there's not much difference between these exams, because there's 30 to 40% of this content that is brand new, that you've never seen before unless you've been studying for the 1101. Now, this also means that if you have been studying already for the earlier version of this exam, that if you want to take the 1100 series version, you're going to have to do more studying, because you don't want to walk into an exam and not have studied 40% of what they plan to present to you. That is probably going to result in a very poor score. So you want to be sure that you are studying from materials that match the version of the exam that you're planning to take. So if you were to look at your course notes and you see that the course notes are for the 220-1102, then you know, and you're planning to take the 220-1102, you've got the right notes. Now, if you're planning to take the 220-1002, then you would need a completely separate. Even though they look similar, there's one letter different on the cover, but there is quite a bit of difference on the inside. So make sure you're looking at the right materials for the exam that you plan to take. There's also replays of this live stream available immediately afterwards. I also upload an audio-only version of this into podcast format. You can find it at professormesser.com/podcast, or just find it on your favorite streaming audio service. Most of the big ones like Spotify and Google and others also have the same podcast available, and you can listen on whatever your favorite listening streaming service happens to be. And if it's not on your streaming service, let me know, and I'll see about adding it to that particular service. There's also Network Plus and Security Plus out there as well. We've got a YouTube video replay available immediately after this is done. It takes a couple minutes to process itself, and then it's available. I don't even have to do anything. It's just on the YouTube automatically. You can find that along with, if you show up about a day later, all of the timestamps associated with the questions, the answers, and the messages that you send to me. You'll find all of that on the YouTube video description, thanks to my marketing manager, Lori. Hey, Lori, she's watching this on the replay. Everyone say hi to Lori. She's the one putting in all of these timestamps and making sure that you have access to all of this information at your fingertips. We've also got a chat you can join when we're not here doing a live stream. You can find us on the chat at professormesser.com/Discord, or click the Discord icon that's in the upper right-hand corner of the Professor Messer website. And you can join us. Somebody is always in there doing something, asking questions, answering questions. It's a good way to send me a message or a direct message if you need something, an easy way to contact anyone who may be studying for their certifications. We've also, speaking of taking certification exams, we have discount vouchers available on our website. These discounts are just already available. There's nothing you have to do. There's no special codes you have to have. They're not discounted some days, but not others. They're not on sale sometimes, but not others. They're just always discounted. You'll just find it at professormesser.com/vouchers. These are vouchers currently only available for the U.S. and Canada. If you do purchase a voucher, you will also get a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. This is a set of, I don't want to call them life hacks, more like exam hacks, where you can get some tips and tricks that can help you during the study process. I also give you some tips on things you can do during the exam that could possibly earn you some additional points on that exam, and we wouldn't want some additional points. That's available to you for free if you purchase the voucher at professormesser.com/vouchers. Don't pay full price for your vouchers on the Pearson VUE or CompTIA website. Get them at a discount from professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's go back to that question we asked earlier. A technician is troubleshooting a problem on a Windows computer. Which of the following would provide the technician with the time since the last restart? What would it be? Well, we've got a number of options here. One of them is Task Manager, Services, SFC, Regedit, or Time and Language. Time and Language is one single selection for those of you listening on the podcast side. So which one would this be? This is, of course, the question we always ask folks when they call in. Have you turned it off and back on again? Which is somewhat of an amusing reply if it wasn't so useful. It is probably, it'll solve half your problems or more, it seems, in Windows. Just reboot the system. And folks will tell you, oh, yeah, I rebooted. It's still doing it. Well, let's see if you've rebooted. Let's use a utility to see how long has it been since this system has restarted. And one way to do that is by using Task Manager. There it is. There's the Task Manager utility in Windows 10, Windows 11, and earlier. This can help you not just in Windows, but other operating systems. I was mentioning in the pre-show, I probably should have rebooted the router that I use for this live stream because sometimes it frees up whatever is stuck inside of the memory of that system, and we're back up and running again. I also want to mention that when you're restarting your system, we're really clearing out memory, getting everything running again. And the real key here, I almost covered it up, is we want the uptime. When we want to check to see how long has this system been running, it gives you the uptime right there in Task Manager. It even says uptime, this system has been running for 32 minutes. So if we just got on the phone with this person and said, could you reboot? And they go, okay, hold on, I'll reboot right now. Okay, it's done. We can look and say, well, this hasn't been rebooted in 32 minutes. So let's reboot it and see if the problem really goes away. If you want to do a sanity check, make sure you really rebooted the system. That's a great place to check, is Task Manager. And indeed, that is the right answer. Let's see how you did with this one. 70% of you said Task Manager indeed was the right answer. 19% said Services. And then we have single digits for SFC, the System File Checker, Regedit, the Registry Editor, and Time and Language, which is usually configured on your system for setting time zones and the default language for your operating system. In this case, a number of you remembered this one from last month. It is indeed Task Manager, and 71% of you got that one absolutely correct. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's do some new questions. And in fact, we're going to do a question that's a little more than new. It's a question that is a performance-based question. For those of you that have never used or taken a CompTIA exam before, you don't simply get multiple choice-based questions all the way through like the one we just did. Instead, the first handful of questions on your exam will be more detailed in some ways, but certainly not as simple as a multiple choice. It's questions that CompTIA calls a performance-based question. And the performance-based questions can be fill in the blank. They could put you at a command prompt or on a Windows screen and ask you to perform a function. It might be a drag and drop question or a matching question, or they might ask you to put things in a particular order or ascending or descending on your screen. So I have for you a performance-based question. No one's ever seen this one before because I just wrote it this past weekend. This is something we always do. Every question from this point on is one you have not seen before. This is a matching question. This matching question says, match the utility to the description. And I have 4 utilities here, and I have 7 descriptions. Now, this means that there will be a number of descriptions that simply won't be used. They'll be left off to the side. So this makes the matching part a little more difficult. In fact, this is a very similar strategy that CompTIA uses on a number of their exams. So don't be surprised if you get a question of this style on your exam, because it's very possible you could get all 4 of these wrong because there are 7 different options to fit into 4 different slots. So here's what the the utilities are for those of you listening on the podcast side. DiskPart, RoboCopy, GP Update, and Net Use. That's DiskPart, RoboCopy, GP Update, and Net Use. Now, here are the descriptions. We can apply an Active Directory policy change. We can view the default gateway on a server. We can map a network share to drive G. We can replace any corrupted OS files, transfer a folder between data center locations, add a new partition from the command line, or reset a password on a remote account. Now, if you think you know the answers, follow the link that's on your screen there at the bottom, professormesser.com/QA. Please don't put your answers in the chat room. Please don't put any hints in the chat room either. We're going to pretend we are taking this exam. We don't have a Google. We don't have a friend we can ask. We can't look on our phone, and we can't put anything into a chat room. So let's see how we do with this one. We need to find what DiskPart, RoboCopy, GP Update, and Net Use happens to be. Is that apply an Active Directory policy change, view the default gateway on a server, map a network share to drive G, replace any corrupted OS files, transfer a folder between data center locations, add a new partition from the command line, or reset a password on a remote account? There's a lot going on there. So let's see if you can match those up. This is a fill-in-the-blank question on your side, as long as I click the link. Here we go. And you could put in, maybe they're already in order, and you could say 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, except they're not in that order. That's not the right order. You'd have to find the order that you would like to see. And if you do it on the professormesser.com/QA, it's a fill-in-the-blank. So you don't have to type all of this in. You can simply put 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, and you are good. Takes care of everything at that point. The utilities that are here have been pulled directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. And the descriptions have also been pulled from the exam objectives. So everything that's on here is directly from the objectives. You want to make a note of this. If any of the utilities don't look familiar, make a note of those names. You need to do research when we're done here. And if one of these descriptions doesn't sound like anything you've ever seen before, this happens to me all the time, then make a note of what that description is. And as we get through the rest of these, we'll have 3 left over. I'll even tell you what those 3 things really are associated with. In fact, the 3 that are left over, see if you can figure out what the utility would be if we were filling in the blanks here. See if you can maybe give yourself a little extra credit if you happen to know what that is. Again, answer the question at professormesser.com/QA. You find all of the questions and answers there. You just stay on that page and it will update as you sit there. A number of people are putting those answers in right now. I see the number of responses are coming in. So I'm going to give folks another couple moments to put those in. And of course, you can't Google this because it's never been seen before by the Google machine. Maybe some of this is. I guess if you went through every single utility, you could Google it, try to understand what you're reading, come back to this screen, try to see where it fits, and then do the next one. But by then, we're halfway done with the live stream, aren't we? So that's not going to help you. And no Googling anyway. Do not Google. Do not do that. We'll see how much we really know. If you don't know, take a guess. That's probably a good idea even on the actual exam, because from what we know, we don't really get a lot of information just by reading through this. So see if you can go through it as well and break down what each one of these happens to be. On the exam itself, we don't think you get points taken away if you happen to answer incorrectly. So taking a guess doesn't cost you anything, I guess is the point with that. Yeah, don't ask Jeeves. Don't go to the Bing. Don't go to the Google. You can't do any of those things. No Binging, no Jeeving, no Alta Vista. Back in the day, what was the one even before that? Well, Yahoo was the one back in the day. Yahoo was the big one. Yahoo was the king. There was no better search engine than Yahoo. What happened? It's one of those things where you don't want to be first to market sometimes. Maybe you want to be second to market. Maybe take whatever they did and then figure out the rest from there. There's some old school folks. Lycos, Excite, Dogpile. Those are remarkable. to find those things. I think if you ever get in a situation where you're trying to hunt something down, you just look through there. I was looking through a list of all of the products and projects that Google has canceled through the years. It's remarkable. Similar thing with the other search engine folks. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, match the utility to the description. And we have 4 utilities to go through: DiskPart, RoboCopy, GP Update, and NetUse. So we'll start at the very top. DiskPart. When would we use DiskPart? This one was almost kind of a gimme, I think, because we use part of the name, disk or part, especially partitions is what we're specifically talking about. DiskPart is a command line utility that allows you to do a lot of administrative functions to an individual storage drive, whether that's setting up the disk to begin with or setting up partitions or formatting a partition. You can do a lot inside of DiskPart. So we would choose F, add a new partition from the command line. That's exactly what DiskPart is able to do, and it does it extremely well. If you even wanted to automate that, DiskPart has a way to automate that function so that you can simply plug in a drive and it'll initialize and do a lot of different things at one time because you were using the DiskPart utility. Of course, there are other graphical user interfaces that you can use for this, but DiskPart being at the command line gives you some extra flexibility, especially for doing things that may be automated. Second on our list, RoboCopy. With the robos, with the robots. Is it it's not robot. It's robust. It's robust copy, although not really spelled like robust, but there we are. RoboCopy sounds more cool. Sounds more stylish. And that's where we would mark this with E, transfer a folder between data center locations. Whenever you're transferring files, you're copying files, you could use the copy command. You could use the xcopy command, or you could use the RoboCopy command. All of them have their advantages and disadvantages. RoboCopy is a very useful one because you're able to set up a lot of different criteria for the copy. I like using it especially for very long file transfers, because if it times out in the middle, if we lose our network connection, it will simply wait for the network to be restored, and it will continue where it left off. Most of copy and xcopy, if it loses the network connection, it times out, gives you an error, and says, sorry, I couldn't do that. I know you were in the middle of a multi-gigabyte file transfer, and we were 99% done, but the network fell out, and you're going to have to do it all over again. But RoboCopy will wait, and then when the network's back up, it just finishes the last 1%. So there is some nice function inside of RoboCopy. Next on our list is GP Update. Sounds like it's updating something. It certainly is. If we want to apply an Active Directory, especially a group policy change associated with Active Directory, you would do that with Group Policy Update. GP Update is that utility. And you can tell GP Update to only update things that have changed with the group policy, or to force an update of everything associated with the group policy on that particular system. In fact, I think most people that are doing this, the time is not really any different. The delay it takes, the amount of effort it takes to do a GP update versus a GP update / force is about the same, which is why I think a lot of people just do the force. So there's no question that you're getting a full update of everything associated with a particular user's group policies. And I demonstrate that in my 1102 videos. Of course, in 1102, very different than the 1002, there's an entire video on Active Directory, and you learn how Active Directory works and, more importantly, how to administer it. So GP Update, apply an Active Directory policy change. Last on our list, NetUse. Net is the command, and this is a subcommand of net called the use command, NetUse, U-S-E. That allows you to map a network share. So you use a share. NetUse allows you to map that. And you can have that G drive, for instance, mapped to a network share that's somewhere else on your network, so that instead of you putting in or having to link to that share every time you use it, you could simply reference it as G:, and now you've got access to that particular share. Well, that means that there were a number of descriptions we did not use in this list. One was B, view the default gateway on a server. The other was replace any corrupted OS files. And lastly, reset a password on a remote account. So for extra bonus points, you should have thought in your mind, well, what would view the default gateway on a server, one very easy way to do that is ipconfig if it's a Windows server. If it's a Linux server or Mac OS, it would be ifconfig. And these days in more Linux, there's just IP is the command that would be used for that, which seems to make it a little more compatible because I often go into my Linux and type ipconfig, and Linux tells me, no, you're on Linux now. You need to use Linux commands. Oh, that's right. So now, because when you flip back and forth between Linux and Windows, that happens all the time. You'll be in Linux typing dir and hitting enter, and Linux says, oh, no, we don't do Windows here. You need to type in the Linux commands. So ipconfig would be the command you would use on Windows to view the default gateway on a server. Next on our list, replace any corrupted OS files. The utility that does this exceptionally well is the System File Checker. We just talked about SFC earlier. If you were listening, you might have got that one as a little bit of extra credit. SFC, a great utility to go through all of your core operating system files, look at them and make sure that nothing has changed or modified anything about those files. That's why a lot of people will tell you that if you've had a malware infection and you think you've removed the malware because you like to run crazy and just keep using the system instead of deleting everything and restarting or recovering from a known good backup, you want to continue using that operating system for some reason, which is ill-advised, but I'm not your mom. So you get to decide what to do with your own systems. So you might want to run an SFC just to make sure that malware did not modify any core pieces of your operating system. Otherwise, you might just get reinfected on that particular system. And lastly, resetting a password on a remote account. We would use NetUser, or if you're in Active Directory, you can always use the group policy settings or the Active Directory front end for users and groups would be the best way to do that. Reset a password on a remote account, though, can all be done from the command line using NetUser. Not NetUse, but NetUser, because we are modifying user configurations, and that is certainly what would reset a password on a remote account. So those are our answers. Diskpart adds a new partition from the command line. Robocopy can transfer a folder between data center locations. GPUpdate can apply an Active Directory policy change. And NetUse can map a network share to drive G:. ipconfig can view the default gateway on a server. SFC can replace any corrupted OS files. And NetUser can reset a password on a remote account. All of these commands, as I mentioned, come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. If these don't look familiar or you would like to get a little more information on these commands, you can find them all in the videos that I have for Microsoft and Network Command Line in Domain 1 of the 1102 exam. They are all in there and more. There are a lot of commands you need to know on this particular exam. Windows, Linux, there's plenty to pour through. So make sure you have a look at everything that happens to be there. Hugo in the chat room asks, so what if you got one of these wrong? Do you get partial credit? Or is it just everything is wrong if you get one wrong? And the answer CompTIA has told us is, no, we don't know. Sometimes on some questions, you might get partial credit. Sometimes on other questions, you might not get partial credit. So they at least told us there's a potential for getting partial credit. But what you don't know is when that might be used. And of course, the exam results will never tell you how they're graded. It won't tell you if you were given partial credit or not. So in fact, it really doesn't even matter that you even think about it. Just don't even worry about it and hope that they do. So that on a question like this and you get 3 right and 1 wrong, maybe you get 75% of the points, which would be great. Or maybe you won't, but you'll never know anyway. So sleep well. I guess that's your takeaway. Is don't worry about the details. Before we finish up with our performance-based question, I want to thank Chasen in the chat with the $20 super chat. As we say, coming off the top rope, past my 1102 in late June, when your materials were almost all that existed for that version. So true. Working on my 1101 now, so you're doing it backwards, or in the way I like to do it, the right way. Working on my 1101 now with the same study plan. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you, Chasen, for the $20 super chat. We sure appreciate your support. Congratulations on your 1102. Best of luck on 1101 and maybe some of the things we do in our 1101 study group, and maybe this study group will help you as well. Thanks so much for that. Let's do some more multiple choice-based questions, shall we? Let's maybe simplify. So there is a way, before we get to that, folks are asking about this. Wait, you can do a 1102 first and then 1101? You can do them in any order you would like, whatever you would like to do. In fact, I find if you are someone who is very familiar with the Windows operating system, you might want to start with 1102 because it's very Windows operating system centric. And maybe it's a more comfortable exam and one you think that you can study for a little bit faster, get familiar with the topics. It's your first exam you have to take, so maybe it's your chance to not worry so much about the exam process because you already know the content that's going to be asked of you. Or maybe you're someone who's done hardware and worked with, you built your own computers forever. Maybe you don't consider yourself an operating system expert, but boy, you know that hardware really strong. Maybe the 1101 is where you start. So the one you choose is really up to you. I'm more of an OS person, so for me, I would probably start with 1102. But if you're hardware related, if you're a hardware person, maybe 1101 makes more sense. Just look through the exam objectives. They will tell you what makes the most sense for you. You'll be able to figure it out. And either way, you can't go wrong. You have to take them both eventually, right? So this is one where just choose one of them, go with it, study one at a time, take that one exam, then you can put that all behind you and study for the next one. Don't study for both exams at the same time. That's just crazy talk. That's lunacy. Do not drive yourself down that road. Study for a single exam at a time and you'll be fine. Let's do another question. Multiple choice based question. This one asks, a help desk technician has received a call regarding a network outage. Which ticketing system option would set the priority of this issue? Would it be escalation level, severity, progress notes, category, or user information? A help desk technician has received a call regarding a network outage. Which ticketing system option would set the priority of this issue? Is it escalation level, severity, progress notes, category, or user information? If you think you know the answer, let's put our link on the screen right there, professormesser.com/QA. Go to that link and lock in your answers. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Oil drilling in the chat room. I said drilling because it's an N with an apostrophe, and that's how we talk around here. I passed the 1001 on July 29th, 19, and want to do Core 2 now. CompTIA said I can take the 1002, but I thought it was good for 3 years. I don't want to study the 1002 and find out I need to take the 1001 before the 20th of October. There is no time frame that you must comply with between taking both of these exams. All you have to do is make sure you take both of them before they are retired. So you could take the 1001 the very first day it was offered back in 2019, and if you take the 1002 on October the 20th and pass it, you are A+ certified. So don't worry. You can take, if you already passed the 1001, you're past the 1001. All you have to do is pass the 1002 before October the 20th to be A+ certified for 3 years. There you go. You will not have to retake the 1001 because you've already passed it. In fact, CompTIA tells you that if you have already passed a particular version of an exam, like the 220 1001, you can't take it again. We do not allow you to take the same exam twice. So that helps too. CompTIA themselves say, oh no, you can only take it one time. That's it. Once you pass it, you can't go back and take it again and over and over and over. That's one of those things. So if you've already taken one of them, yeah, take that second one before they retire on October 20th. That would be phenomenal. Jordan in the chat room with a $10 super chat. Jordan passed my Security Plus last Friday with the help of your videos and practice tests. Congratulations, Jordan. Thank you for your $10 super chat support. And more importantly, congratulations on your new Security Plus certification. That was a tough one. That was a big one. The SY0601 Security Plus exam is a big exam. You think the A+ exams are big. I think the Security Plus alone is probably just as large as both A+ stuck together. I think that's how that one would work. Would the A+ expire when you pass the second exam? Well, after 3 years. Yes, Eric, you are correct. So if you took the 1001 in 2019, you take the 1002 on October the 20th. Please don't do that, but you could. And you pass, you're now A+ certified for 3 years. It doesn't matter what they do the exam. Once you're certified, you're never going to have to take the exam again. You're good. You'll just renew every 3 years, and that renewal doesn't require you to take the exam every 3 years, thankfully. That is a helpful one. Let's see how we did with this one. Yes, there are help desk questions on the new A+ exam, and why shouldn't there be? That's what we tend to step into on our very first job, and everybody uses some type of ticketing system, regardless of what level you are in IT. So let's look at this question because it asks, a help desk technician has received a call regarding a network outage. Which ticketing system option would set the priority of this issue? Is it escalation level, severity, progress notes, category, or user information? And if we look at the results, we can see that 64% of you say severity is what we would like to set. 26% of you say escalation level is what you would like to set. And then we have single digits, 5% for category, 3% for user information, and 1% for progress notes. Well, this is where we would want to determine how we would configure this particular problem. Someone calls in and says, the network is down. How do you configure a ticket to relay to other people just how important it is that this particular problem has occurred? And what you want to do is step through the different options that are available in your help desk system. One of these options may be the category of the problem. The category might be a very broad problem, such as network error. It may be, you may have a category called outage so that you can customize exactly how a particular problem might be categorized. This is going to help you later if you start doing some research and you start looking through, show me all the tickets that we did this month that we're dealing with outages, that we're dealing with onboarding, that we're dealing with hardware requests or change requests. And then you can look those up to see what the status is. Well, in this case, categories is not what we were looking for. We were trying to set a priority for this particular problem. Somebody's called with an outage, and we want to make sure everybody who looks at this ticket understands how important this problem happens to be. So we would want to set the severity of this issue. The severity demonstrates just how urgent, just how important this particular issue happens to be. So if somebody called and says, our network is down, well, of course, we're going to start asking questions. Do you mean your network connection is down, or do you mean everybody around you has no connectivity to the network? And what is the message that you're seeing that says the network is down? So sometimes you'll find out once you start asking a few questions that it's not really a network problem. They just can't log into their email. Or you may find out that nobody in the entire warehouse has any connectivity to the internet or the corporate office, and they're having to call you over their cell phones. Then you realize, wow, this problem is not a low priority like I thought it was going to be. This is now a critical issue because we have an entire site down. So now we get to decide just how important this problem is, and you as the help desk technician is going to need to make that determination. Of course, this can be changed later if you need to, but usually something that is a higher severity has a different set of steps that occur after that. If you submit a critical severity, it may be that everyone has to drop what they're doing and concentrate on that ticket. So you've got a few options available to you. Now, there are also times when there may be an escalation that needs to occur. An escalation means that we're going to take this problem and we're going to send this over to people that specialize in this particular issue. So we're going to send this to a special networking team, or we're going to send this over to the team that purchases things for an onboarding process. So it may be different steps and different escalations depending on the type of problem that we're dealing with. But here we're not talking about who's working on the problem. We're interested in determining how severe is this problem? What is the priority of this problem? And in that case, we are setting severity as this particular issue. And in fact, 65% of you said, yep, severity is what I would choose to set the priority. And that is the correct answer. Answer B, severity is the one we were looking for. Escalation level, as we mentioned, is when other people were sending this over to other groups to have to handle this problem. We haven't even set the priority yet. It might be that this problem is a low priority, but we still need the network team to look at it. Or it may be a critical priority, and we definitely want the network team to deal with this particular problem with the escalation. So you've got different options depending on the problem, depending on who solves it, and depending on what the actual issue might be. And that's really up to you as the front line, as the help desk person, to be able to really sift through all of the things a person may be seeing, to gather information about errors that are on their screen, and to then start making a determination of how important is this particular problem. Because if an entire site is down, you certainly don't want to flag this ticket as a low priority, and then it sits around for 2 days until somebody realizes, what? There's a site that's down? Why didn't you set it to be critical in your severity? Because that certainly is a severe issue. 65% chose B. That is the right answer. We did look at categories well, and user information, almost self-explanatory. That's where you would add the information in for user's name, their extension, where they're located, and other details that we can then use to get back in touch with that user later on. That is our help desk question, and this comes directly from our help desk video on 1102. It's section 4.1 called Ticketing Systems. So that's where we got that information from. And if you want more information on help desks or see the help desk that I was using for that video, you can find it in section 4.1 under the Ticketing Systems video. So let's see how we do with our next question. Let's take that help desk question and slide into maybe a troubleshooting problem. Let's see what this problem has to tell us. This question asks, the DHCP server for a network is unavailable. However, the IP addressing for a laptop is providing full access to local servers and the internet. Which of the following is the most likely reason for this? Let's see if I can say it right. Is it APIPA, Active Directory, 802.1x, alternate configuration, or VPN? The DHCP server for a network is unavailable. However, the IP addressing for a laptop is providing full access to local servers and the internet. Which of the following is the most likely reason for this? Is it APIPA, Active Directory, 802.1x, alternate configuration, or VPN? If you think you know the answer, go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Everyone's being really good about that anyway. I don't know why I have to keep saying it, but there it is. We'll figure out the details. In the chat room, folks are talking about sort of this idea, and Thoris Fury in the chat room has a very good point. So if you are studying the 1001 and 1002, that 1000 series set of exams, you might want to also look at the retake policy, because if you're coming up on October the 20th and you take the exams a certain number of times, you may be locked out of being able to take it again before the exam is retired. If you take an exam and you fail, you can immediately go back the next day and take the exam again. There's no time frame that you have to wait. There's no waiting period between your first and second attempt. However, if you don't pass your second attempt, you have to wait 2 weeks, 14 days before you can take the exam again. So if you did all of this on October the 10th, thinking that you would have enough time to take it again by the 20th, but your second attempt and you fail, you actually don't have enough time to take it again. You only have 10 days and you need 14. So take that into account. That's a very good point, Thoris Fury. Thank you so much for pointing that out, because I don't think a lot of people think through that. I know it's kind of a corner case for people that have already taken the exam twice, but it could be really important for folks that are looking into timing this exactly right. And trust me, there will be people taking their final exam or even both exams on October the 20th. I'm not kidding. It happens every time because we're humans. That's how we work. We wait until the last minute and then we realize, I really should take this. So that's something that it just happens. So we're here to help you. Even if you're going all the way up to October the 20th, our Discord is always here. Of course, our videos are always available. We've got more things for you to study from. It's all on ProfessorMesser.com, so you're in really good shape. Let's see how you did with this question, which I think was a pretty good one. The DHCP server for a network is unavailable. However, the IP addressing for a laptop is providing full access to local servers and the internet. Which of the following is the most likely reason for this? Is it APIPA, Active Directory, 802.1x, alternate configuration, or VPN? We have a tie for first. When does this happen? 37% of you, I guess not technically a tie, but close enough. Alternate configuration is 37%. There's our tie. APIPA, 37%. Thank you, person that chose APIPA, so I could really get a tie for first. Both of those, we're evenly split between both of those, but we also are choosing other options. For example, VPN is 16%. We have Active Directory at 8% and 802.1x at 3%. So there you go. Thank you, Hugh, in the chat room for getting that tie in there. We appreciate you. So which one is it then? Is it APIPA Or is it alternate configuration? We need to figure out what's going in here. Let's first look at the configurations we would have for a wired connection on our system. For example, if you're running Ethernet, you're simply plugging in an Ethernet cable, and you can view the parameters of that Ethernet connection inside of Windows. These are the network connections, and you can view the properties of those network connections from there. By default, Windows, if you have multiple connections, because I do on my system, I have a wired Ethernet, and then I have a wireless 802.11 connection, but Windows knows which one's faster, and it will use the faster base connection. So if you're plugged into Ethernet, it's probably going to use Ethernet, especially for gig Ethernet. Unless you're running a really, really fast wireless, then it might use your wireless to be the primary connection. You have to look at that inside of the settings and find out which one is really taking priority. For all of these, you can drill down into the configuration and change parameters for things like IP version 4. And if you were to look at the properties of IP version 4, you've probably seen this before. You can have the system obtain an IP address automatically, which means it will go out to a DHCP server and retrieve an IP address and assign that IP address to this system, along with other settings like subnet masks, default gateways. And if you wanted to, you could even tell the system to use the DNS server that's given in DHCP as well. This one happens to split it out, and you're putting in your own DNS server. That's probably an unusual config, that's how I roll with unusual configs. But a real question we had was that the DHCP server's down. So if you had this configuration and the DHCP server was down, you would not be able to get and fill in an IP address for this unless you would click this tab right at the top that my head's kind of covering that says alternate configuration. And if you click that, it gives you the options of how this should be used when, I'll move my head out of the way, on more, here we go. If this computer is used on more than one network, enter the alternate IP settings below, and you can have an automatic private IP address, which is not what we want because that only gives us access to our local network. We want to use the user configured address where you could put in kind of a backup IP. So if you're connecting to a network that does not have a DNS server, use this IP address configuration instead. Don't assign me a link local address. That's what an automatic IP address configuration is, or APIPA. That APIPA gives you connectivity to devices on your own local subnet, but it will not allow you to connect to devices outside of your subnet. So you wouldn't be able to use the internet in this setting where it was an automatic private IP address. But if you selected user configured and you filled in all of this information manually, it would be able to have your system continue to work normally, assuming, of course, that your IP address configurations are appropriate for the subnet you happen to be connected to. That's what we were looking for. And the key for this particular question was that, I come back to this one, the question asked, and it even mentioned the DHCP server for the network is unavailable, which for most of us will think, well, we're going to get an APIPA address. Except we're not, because in this case, this laptop is providing full access to local servers and the internet. So it is communicating off of this subnet, which means we don't have a link local address. So this means someone must have chosen alternate configuration. That's the only option in any of these that makes any sense. It is not only the most likely reason for this. From the different options that are available, it's the only option that it could have been is the alternate configuration. That's what we were looking for. And if you're one of the 36% of you that chose alternate configuration, you got that one absolutely correct. It was not APIPA, even though I sort of made the question kind of sound like it was going to be that way. Not really a trick question as much as one reminding you APIPA does not always equate back to a particular network configuration. And there are ways to work around APIPA. This can be also that alternate configuration really useful if you are doing DHCP at work, but you don't use DHCP at home for whatever reason. I don't know why you wouldn't, but maybe you don't use DHCP at home. You can have that alternate configuration set to your home setting. So at work, it uses DHCP. And then when you take it home, it uses whatever your alternate configuration happens to be. So that is in there. And by the way, that is a new option available that you need to know about, specifically written in the 220 1102 exam objectives. It was in 1101 as well, but not quite as prominent as it is in the 1102. But in either case, it might help you regardless of which exam you plan to take. The other options that were here, Active Directory is a database that can store users, devices, and other information and allow you to centrally manage an entire Windows configuration. But Active Directory doesn't help us at all with setting up IP addressing on a laptop with access and internet and any of those things. That would not be the most likely reason. 802.1x is a way to authenticate, especially on a network, so that you can gain access using a series of usernames and passwords. This restricts somebody from gaining access to your network unless they have the correct credentials. If you're plugging in or connecting to a wireless network at work, you're probably using 802.1x. And VPN, I think we're all familiar with a virtual private network at this point. We just need a good global pandemic to get us more familiar with remote access technologies, right? Virtual private network allows us to connect over an encrypted tunnel back to another device, a distant device, I say, but another device. I guess it doesn't have to be that distant, does it? VPN is there. 15% of you chose that one, but a VPN doesn't provide you with full access to the internet if a DHCP server happens to be down. So the correct answer in this question, alternate configuration. Option D is the correct answer, and 37% of you got that one absolutely right. That is the right answer. Thank you so much for that. Let's do another question. Before we get to the next question, though, I'd like to remind you, as if I don't have to already, that everything that we've looked at so far comes directly from the CompTIA exam objectives for the 1102 exam. And we've already talked about some security issues. We've talked about IP configurations, and there's so much more dealing with security and troubleshooting and operating systems and Windows and Linux and Mac OS and so much more in the 1102 exam. In fact, if you took both of my courses and put them together, it's 137 videos. I know, because I did all of them, and then 19 hours of content. That's a lot of content, a lot of videos. And I realize not everybody has time to go through 137 videos. I barely do, and I'm the one that made them. So I do give you an option, though. If you don't have time to go through all of them, you can get my course notes. My course notes are a way that you can take everything that is in those videos and collapse it down into one single consolidated view of all of the text, all of the important charts, all of the important graphics, everything you would need to know for the 1102 exam. It doesn't replace your videos. It doesn't replace a textbook. It doesn't replace labs or Q&A, but it is a good way to get an idea and a consolidated view of everything that's on the exam. This is the digital version you're seeing here. It's a PDF so that you can put it on any of your devices. So wherever you happen to go, you've got access to everything about the exam. So this might be a very good way to help remember some of the things that come from your exam. I've also got physical versions of the books as well. And when you purchase the physical book, you get the digital version for free. Comes along with it. So while you're waiting on this to be delivered to you, because I have to print it and send it to you, you can, of course, always go out and have a look at the digital version, carry that around, and then you'll get the physical book in the mail as soon as we can get it over to you. If you want to learn more about those, they are on my website, professormesser.com/1102notes. And that's a great place to also support what we do. If you buy both the 1101 and 1102 at the same time, also a little bit of a discount. So that might help you as well. In the chat room, Marcella asks, which free PDF reader do I recommend? There are a lot of good PDF readers out there. If you want to talk free, technically speaking, Adobe Acrobat Reader is free, and that is the one that probably is most compatible with really any PDF that you'll happen to find. That should probably be the first one you use. A lot of people have said, I don't like the Adobe stuff that much. What should I use? And there's a lot of other options. Foxit has a very good PDF reader. In fact, I think I've got that loaded on both my system and my laptop and my tablet. There are other free readers out there. Just make sure you look very carefully, because not every free PDF reader is of high quality or even legitimate for that matter. So make sure whichever one you're using, you're downloading directly from the manufacturer or the developer of that particular PDF reader. Find out more about that, 1102 Notes. Let's do some more questions. Enough about my notes. Let's talk about good stuff like this question that asks, which of the following would securely delete all data from a storage drive and allow the drive to be redeployed? Would that be quick format, degaussing, incineration, shredder, or regular format? Which of the following would securely delete all data from a storage drive and allow the drive to be redeployed? Would that be quick format, degaussing, incineration, shredder, or regular format? It's got to be one of those, right? We've got some options. Have a look at those. They are available on your screen. Lock in your answer by visiting professormesser.com/QA, and you will absolutely know exactly which one that happens to be when you lock it in. Remember which one you lock into, because it doesn't tell you. You have to remember those things. A lot of time goes by. We don't work through that. The 1101 and 1102 exams do not expire in October of 22. They expire in 2025, we believe. That's our estimate, is 2025, but you got plenty of time. Plenty of time. Is there a grace period for the 1002 after expiration? Oh, no. It expires on October the 20th. There are no grace periods. There's no time when they'll go, well, we said October 20th, but we really meant later. No, they don't do that. It's October 20th is a drop dead date, as they say. You are not able to take any of these 1001 or 1002 exams after October the 20th for English-speaking countries. Now, other countries have different expirations for those particular exams, but for, I would guess, most people probably watching this, it would be October 20th, but for some of you, it may not be, so make sure you check for your particular country and your particular language that you use to know when that particular version is going to retire. Pretty important to know what that is. Let's see how we did with this one. A number of you are still putting in answers for this one, trying to figure out what the difference is between all of these. We will go look at the differences between all of these just so you can figure out what it happens to be. This is going to be also a good one if you are in a position where you have an older machine, but you would like to use that drive on a newer device. Now, you may need to follow some of these so that you're able to take advantage of that piece of hardware. It would be bad if we just threw it away and it was something we could have used for later. So let's see how you did. The question again asked, which of the following would securely delete all data from a storage drive and allow the drive to be redeployed? That's an important and in this question, isn't it? The options are quick format, degaussing, incineration, shredder, and regular format. Let's see how you did. Let's show the results, and you can see that 63% of you say a regular format is what we were looking for. 14% said degaussing, 13% said quick format, 9% said shredder, and then 3% said incineration. So which one would it be? Well, in this case, I can tell you that the answer is definitely related to formatting. If you do, there's a number of different types or terms we use for formatting. The first that you'll hear people use is a low-level format. This is a type of formatting that is done at the factory. It's the one that initially configures the drive so that it knows where the sectors are, it knows where the tracks are. Low-level formatting is not something that a user tends to do. One of the problems I've seen online is that some websites are trying to change the definition of what low-level formatting means. So there is a question that some people might ask that says, well, no, isn't low-level formatting just sort of wiping everything? It is not. It's a much lower-level format than that. And it's something that only you can do at the factory. So effectively, you don't have to worry about that one. You will never do a low-level format unless you are working for the manufacturer themselves. I guess then you would. But if you're not working for the manufacturer, you're not doing a low-level format. Another format you might do is a quick format. This is one of the standard formatting options available in Windows. This is a Windows term, is quick format. There are similar formatting terms available in different operating systems, but this is the one most people know in Windows, is that you can do a quick format. And like the name implies, you could have a multi-terabyte drive and you type in quick format and it finishes formatting very quickly, just like the name implies. It is a very quick format. And we're able to immediately get a response back. We look at the drive. There's no files stored in the drive, so now we can continue with what we were doing. The quick format, however, is not actually deleting or overwriting anything but the master file table or a master directory that is on this particular drive. These file systems we use, like FAT32 and NTFS and other file systems, have an index. So whenever we need to access a file, it really goes to the index to say, okay, where's this file this person's looking for? Oh, it's over here on this track in this sector. Okay, we'll go over there and grab that file for that person. And usually there are multiple copies of that file index, just in case something happens to one of them. You've got a backup. It's all built into the file system. You don't even know it's happening. In fact, you never see this index. It's something the users never commonly have access to. You can view it, however, if you have an hex editor and you want to go into the drive and play around with some of those settings, you can go look at it, but we normally never see it. The problem is that with a quick format, we're never actually overwriting any of the data on the drive. We're only overwriting the index. It's sort of like ripping the index out of the front of a book and the table of contents, and then you can still see that the pages are there. That's okay. You can overwrite the pages. We don't really care about the pages, but I've cleared out the index for you. I erased everything. So the book is effectively empty, right? No, the pages are still in the book. Same thing with this drive. The data is still on the drive. And if you have the right application, the right utility, you can very, very easily, as long as you don't overwrite anything, you can very easily recover that data by using the right recovery software if somebody performed a quick format. So how can you make it so the drive really deletes everything, what we call a secure delete, and then I can use the drive again? Well, you'd use just a regular format. Wouldn't be the quick format. The regular format of Windows will not only clear the index, but it will go through every single sector on every file that's on that drive, and it will overwrite it with, I think, zeros. I want to say it's zeros, just as a single overwrite of all of those. And that's all it takes, by the way. You only have to overwrite a file one time. You only have to overwrite data one time on these devices, and it's gone forever. You have now securely deleted it. I know there are utilities and people that insist of overwriting a drive 4 or 5 or 6 times before they are ever happy that nothing on that drive could be recovered. But the reality is it was that way after the first overwrite. Every overwrite you do after that is effectively worthless. You can't recover once you overwrite that data. This is the default ever since Windows Vista. So if you're running Windows 10 and Windows 11, you're absolutely right. So why does the DOJ say you need to overwrite it 7 times? Because the government knows that if you overwrite it 7 times, that has to be 7 times better than overwriting it once. The person that wrote those requirements, and in fact, if you do some research and go back in time, you will find that there was a paper written that theoretically posited that on this older style drive format, which was the MFM format, that they could think that it might be possible that if you happen to have an electron microscope and the perfect circumstance for this specific drive method, that you could potentially, although unproven, recover data. That's literally, not literally, but close. That's a good summary of what that particular document said. So the military said, what? There's a chance? Let's override it 7 times, or whatever the number is, 4 times, whatever they decided for the standard. They changed the standard from time to time. And they decided, yes, we're going to override it a bunch of times, even though it's not that old format. Nobody's ever done this before. Nobody's ever recovered data from first you'd have to have an electron microscope, and nobody's ever done that. So that's your problem, is that you're overriding something to protect against a situation that in the history of everything has never occurred. So that's the problem. That's right. But it's better safe than sorry. It's completely inefficient, and it's your government. So of course it's inefficient. That's kind of the way it works. They do figure if 1 is good, 7 is better, so we'll do 7 of them. And you're right, it may take hours to perform a single overwrite of this drive. In fact, it might take a very long time to do a regular format for that very reason. We're overwriting that data to have that regular format happen. So that is the answer we were looking for. We want to securely delete, but we want the drive to be redeployed, which means we will indeed perform a regular format. That was answer E. 60% of you got that question right. Now 61. You can't put in your answer now. You can't pile on now. It's 60%. I'm not accepting your answer. 14% of you said quick format. And we just explained why quick format would not be something that securely deleted all data. Although to a user's perspective, it sure looks like it was deleted. But as we know, we can run a program to recover all of that data, and that is certainly not secure. There's other options here. 12% of you said degaussing. Degaussing is a fancy term for saying hit it with a big magnet. That's what a degaussing is. We turn on a big electromagnet. In fact, I've used to use these with tapes. Back in the day, we had 9-track tape drives. Those are those big tapes you always see in the old movies that are spinning around inside of the big data center. Those tapes, it helps if you can delete everything on the tape so you can start fresh. And there's a big box that we used to use that was degausser. And we would go over, put the tape on the box. We'd hit a button. It would go boom as that electromagnet and all of the capacitors sort of heated up and got electrified. And it deleted everything on that particular tape. We'd flip it over, make sure it deleted both sides of it, make sure we got all of it. And then you can put it on the system and it's completely clear. If you do that with a hard drive or storage drive, what you'll find is you are clearing out everything on the drive, including the lower level information that's required to make the drive work in the first place. So this is a case where you are just deleting everything, including everything you would need to make the drive work. If you degauss a hard drive, you are effectively turning it into a boat anchor. It is no longer a drive. It doesn't act as a drive. It's not useful for a drive. But boy, you sure securely deleted everything. No question there. Half of this worked. You got the secure deletion right, but the drive cannot be redeployed. Sorry about that. We've also got shredding. Shredding is just tearing the drive up into tiny little pieces. Usually there's an industrial shredding device, and if you've got time on YouTube, it's fascinating. You put the drive in the shredder, and it just grinds it up in just a matter of seconds. And now the drive securely deleted, absolutely. Is it redeployed? No, you can't take the pieces of this after it's done and somehow make it work again. So shredding deletes everything, and you'll never get that data back. And lastly, incineration, and of course, fire hot. So incineration is burning it. And as you might expect, once you burn a drive, it's not really going to be very useful for you in the future, but that is really super secure. That is what you would use. The shredder is not a program that shreds the drive, overwrites the drive. Nope, that's not what shredder is. A shredder is a physical shredding mechanism. That's what that is. So there's probably a utility out there called shredder. I wouldn't be surprised, but that's not it. It is indeed, as you say, Josiah, a one and done. You delete it one time, you overwrite it one time, it is gone. So a regular format's exactly what we were looking for, which overwrites everything, but leaves the drive in an operational state that you could use on a separate machine. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, you can follow these instructions to receive an email from me for a CEU that I will email to you. It will be the process, and you want to follow this process, is you want to go to the Professor Messer website. On the top or bottom of the website is a Contact Us link. On that Contact Us link, you want to put your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put October 2022 Core 2 Study Group or something like that. And then, of course, you've got a body of a message. And in the body of the message, I want you to put the super secret code word of the month, because we just talked about it, and I am a big fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Shredder. That's what we would like to use, Shredder. Not Leonardo. Not one of those others. Shredder. I want to go Shredder. We're going villain on this one. That is your super secret code word of the month. Send that to me, and we will absolutely, in about a week or so, get back to you with an email that says you must have watched this for a webinar category CEU. Again, you go to the top or the bottom of my website, click the Contact Us link, put your name, email address, subject line of August 2022, and then, of course, you can plug in anything, use the super secret code word of Shredder and send that to me. You can put anything else you'd like in there, too. I'll be glad to read through these. I'm not able to respond back to all of them because we do get quite a few, but I'm more than happy to read through them. Thank you. Jesse in the chat room says shred is a Linux command for 7x overwriting of a disk, and you can see I didn't use that command in this question. It was shredder. So of course there's a utility that sounds something like that because it's a great name. Why wouldn't we call it shred? Shred the disk, dude. That's what we want to do. Now, I know we are 9 minutes after. I've got another question here. So let's do another one. I know we're over time. We're just going to overtime it. We're just going to go this way and do another question. This question asks, an alert has appeared on a user's desktop stating that malware has been identified and to call a toll-free number for removal. Which of the following is the most likely cause of this message? Is it false alert, brute force attack, vulnerability scan, security patch, or expired certificate? An alert has appeared on a user's desktop stating that malware has been identified and to call a toll-free number for removal. Which of the following is the most likely cause of this message? Is it false alert, brute force attack, vulnerability scan, security patch, or expired certificate? It's got to be one of those, right? See if you know what the answer is by locking in your answer. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. You instead want to go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. No, it just seems like I can't talk properly. I can talk just fine. It's only the talking for an hour that tends to do that. That's much better. That is true. And indeed, Kit Bogue on YouTube is a good one to watch. That might help you with this particular question. He is hilarious. In fact, we will often sit around the dinner table and talk about some of his videos sometimes just to see just how crazy it can get. And it can get pretty crazy. I have to wonder how he's going to he keeps increasing what he's doing. It keeps going up, keeps leveling up. And I keep thinking, what's he going to do to level up on that one? Sometimes you don't have to. You can just do the same thing over and over and get that one running. Let's see how you did with this question. I think some of you may be pondering this one just a bit. The question asked, an alert has appeared on a user's desktop stating that malware has been identified and to call a toll-free number for removal. Which of the following is the most likely cause of this message? Is it a false alert, a brute force attack, a vulnerability scan, a security patch, or an expired certificate? We can see that 71% of you say that is a false attack, but 14% say that is a brute force attack, and 11% say that is a vulnerability scan. 3% say it is an expired certificate, and 1% says that is a security patch. Well, one of the things that you may find as you are browsing around the internet, and who would have thought that this would happen on something as safe and comfortable as the internet, but you can get an antivirus alert that actually is false. It's not a real antivirus alert. In fact, it'll put a message on your screen. It looks like it's very serious, and it tells you here's a significant problem you need with your system, and the only way you can get rid of this is to simply call this 800 number and subscribe to our antivirus service. They want some money from you somehow. That is really the key. Or they may say, we can fix it, but it's going to cost you some money. Simply give us $99, $199, $299, and we will fix it for you. Sometimes this is a program that is stuck in your system, and it will show up again even if you reboot, or this may just be a web page, and it's not permanent. It didn't modify anything on your system. There was nothing malicious that occurred other than the message itself. There is no virus. They're not going to clean your system because there is nothing to clean, but they are going to clean your wallet because there is something to clean from inside there. These are getting very, very good. This is an alert that showed up on a family member's machine just a few weeks ago. Perfect timing. As I was shooting this video for my exam series, one of my relatives got this on their screen. I said, oh, take a screenshot with your phone, send it to me right now. And they did. And this is what they got. It says, you must contact us immediately so that our engineers can walk you through the removal process over the phone. Your computer is disabled. And then it gives you this fake prompt that says Windows Defender Security Center. And it says the app is the ads.financetrack2.dll. In fact, if you do a Google search for finance track parentheses 2.dll, you'll see everybody talking about the fake antivirus alert. It says the threat detected was a Trojan spyware. How ironic that that's what they would use for this problem. Yes, it is a Trojan spyware, as it turns out. Access to this PC has been blocked for security reasons. Contact Windows support. at 855, and there was a number here, and I blacked out that number so you wouldn't see it. This is all fake. This is not real. There's not a problem on your system. They just saw an opportunity on a website. Maybe they infected a third-party website with this pop-up message, and anybody who visits that website sees this message pop up on their screen. For this particular family member, I had them completely restart their machine. I got into it remotely. I ran an antivirus scan. We checked the URL they went to. We really backtracked over how did they get this message to begin with. And yes, they love to use crypto. They love to use gift cards. They love to use anything where they can get the money immediately, and then there's no way to track where it came from. You'll see the messages when you go to the store, especially in the gift card section, that says, if you have been contacted by law enforcement or if you've been contacted by a third party and they say you need to buy and send them a bunch of gift cards, this is a scam. Don't do it. And unfortunately, people will see that. They will explain to them that they're not going to take you to jail. Nobody's calling from the police department and telling you that you have a warrant. You don't have to send in money to your utility or they're going to turn off your electricity today. Those aren't real. Your law enforcement doesn't ask for gift cards. Your utility does not ask for gift cards, but I wouldn't put it past them. And none of these things happen to be true. So this may be your opportunity to help a family member if they run into a situation like that. This is indeed a false alert. 69% of you say false alert, and you'd be absolutely correct. 14% of you said this is a brute force attack. The term brute force attack means that someone is constantly performing the same function over and over and over again with slightly different parameters in the hopes that they can gain access to that system. We often associate a brute force attack with someone trying to recover a password from a hash, because you would have to run that hash multiple times until you find a match. I mentioned that in my both my Network Plus and my Security Plus course. And I think in the A Plus, we talk a little bit about password hashing and reverse engineering and brute forcing in that one as well. So that's in there on this particular version. And vulnerability scans would be a scan that we use to determine if a system happens to have an existing vulnerability. You would not get a message on your screen telling you you have some crazy Trojan virus if you were running something like a vulnerability scan, or if someone's running a vulnerability scan to you. That's not how a vulnerability scan works. Security patches. This is clearly not a security patch. We've probably been through that process of updating our computer every month. On that Windows Thursday update, when they send all of the security patches out, we know that it downloads them, it applies them, and tells you, hey, you got to reboot now. That's a security patch. You certainly would not get a message saying you have to call an 800 number to remove malware. It's almost ludicrous when you say it out loud like that. And then an expired certificate would give you messages in your browser about an expired certificate, which are very different messages than you have malware and you must call someone. So that is a good idea to look at all of those. You do need to know the difference of all of those. But in this particular problem, the one we were looking for was answer A. The false alert is what we were looking for. And if you answered A, you got that one absolutely correct. That's what we were looking for. That is, we call it a false alert because that's what CompTIA calls it. And that is slightly different than a rogue antivirus because we are not installing an antivirus. We are not installing an application. We're simply visiting a web page and suddenly getting a pop-up that says you have a virus on your system, but it was really a false alert. That's what we were looking for. That's the differences between that and a rogue antivirus. In fact, all of that information, including the terms false alert and more, are available in your exam objectives. Go to the CompTIA website and download those objectives. There's also a link over to the CompTIA website at professormesser.com/objectives. That's a good place you can go to be able to find those objectives. They are comprehensive. They will tell you everything you need to know to pass this exam. They are probably the first thing you should download and look through, and they should probably be the last thing you look through before you go into your exam. It will tell you if you've really studied everything. And I get questions every week where people will tell me, what do I really need to study for my A+ exam? Well, you need to study every bullet that's inside of these objectives. It is comprehensive. It is everything you need to know. It's almost like a secret. CompTIA is probably the only certification organization out there that does anything to this detail. You don't see this from Microsoft. You can't get this from AWS. Cisco doesn't do this. There's only one organization, practically one organization, I can think of one other, that gives you a bulleted detail of everything you need to know, and it's all in those exam objectives. Make sure you grab those. We do one of these study groups every month. We have one coming up in September. Notice our September schedule, a little chaotic, a little weird. Normally we do both A pluses on the same week. In this case, September 6th is one of them, and September 12th is the other. I know, it's a Monday. We'll get through it, don't worry. And then our Network Plus is on the 28th of September, and Security Plus on the 29th, back to back. Make sure you tune in on the 29th to see if I'm still alive after doing all of this and having won the previous day. Those could be challenging. We'll have to see if that is really what happens with this. Well, this is a lot of detail. If you were working through your certification exam and trying to figure out what do I do next, what are the things that we really should be working on, those are indeed the things we should be working on. We try to get through all of these to figure out where do we do next, and we take that cue from you. If you have questions or things you'd like to see on the next study group, I would love to get your input. It would be fantastic. We do one of these study groups every month. And one of the things that I always tell people is come on back and we'll do more questions. They'll be different every single time. Don't forget about my course notes. They're available on my website at professormesser.com/1102success. And eventually, I know it says practice exams here, but in the coming weeks, practice exams will be added to that as well. Don't forget about the vouchers along with your free Exam Hacks ebook. And we, of course, have all of the things available on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and other places. Just type in professormesser.com/YouTube/Twitter/Instagram/LinkedIn. Wherever you want to find me, hopefully you can find me there. Stick around for the after show. That's what we're doing next, where I will take your questions from the chat room. Thank you for being here in this first hour. We will see you next time on the A+ study group. Okay, let's now take a sip. Everyone hydrate. And let's do the after show, everybody. This is the after show. So we have already gone through sort of the formal Q&A that I set up. I write every month, and we go through all of those things. But I like to get questions from you. So we're effectively turning this around so that you can get questions and ask questions of me. In fact, I will put up a lower third here so that you can get an idea of where you can go. If you're on YouTube right now, it's the YouTube chat that I'm looking at. That's where I get these from. I'm looking at the chat that's right here in front of me. So all of you are putting in your comments in the YouTube chat, and I'm more than happy to answer anything you might have there. I've also got, as we step through this, anything that you'd like to ask. It doesn't have to be about technology. It can really be about anything. So feel free to put that in there. And of course, many people like to be able to ask those things as well. First question, is there a place to complete labs or have hands-on virtual? Well, I personally don't produce any labs, but there are a number of labs on my website available. The CompTIA labs are just phenomenal. They're the ones that have been completely revamped. In fact, I'm going to log into my CompTIA labs so that you can get a feel for what these look like. Let's see if I can use the right login, which is always my challenge, putting in the right credentials. See if I choose the right one on my list. And I'll put these in with, there we go, our username and password. I run the Google or the CompTIA labs. As I mentioned, they've been revamped. I've just logged into my account. And let's go down here. I have a number of things that I have. The CompTIA labs right there. So let's choose that one. We're just going to run this from scratch so you can kind of get a feel for what it's like. I've got the 1101, 1102 labs, the 601 labs, the Network Plus labs. They're all in here. But I want to run the 1102 labs. So I'm going to say, let's start that up. And then it launches the labs up, starts building out the labs. These are all virtualized labs. They are real systems. They are designed to give you feedback on things that would be important to know for the 1102 exam. We can adjust things quite a bit. This is the 1101. I need to go back to the 1102. I think this is where I left it last time I was here. So let's go back to those. And in that lab, yeah, you can grade it. I didn't do very good on that lab. Yeah, they're all 3D on the 1101. It's pretty fancy. I did not pass. That's sad. Let's scroll down. Really what I needed to do. Down here, things like the 1102 labs where you can manage user settings or support Windows 11 or configure Windows settings or use Task Manager. We talked about Task Manager today. So let's bring up the Task Manager lab that happens to be here. Because this is virtualized, it is going to load up the entire virtual machine here. So it takes about a minute to get this running, about 50 seconds it tells me to get that running. So you'll be able to have the entire system available, which is kind of nice. You're not on a rail. You can even go outside the scope of the lab because you're running a real version of Windows to have that there. If you want to find out about these, they are on my website under the 1102 pull-down window under 1102 study recommendations. So currently, you asked the price. What a good question. I'm going to go to my website, and we're going to find out what the price is right now. I'm going to go over there under the 1102 setting. I'm going to choose the 1102 study recommendations. We're going to bypass the Google ads that are here. And the labs, interactive lab pack for Core 2, these are priced at for a single pack, $119. And when you purchase these on my site, even though they're a CompTIA lab, I also include a set of my course notes, depending on which lab you get. If you get the Core 1 lab, you get my Core 1 notes. If you get my Core 2 lab, you get the Core 2 notes. If you get both, then you get both sets of notes. If you already have the notes, let me know. I think I've got an upgrade already in your member login. So there's an upgrade link that you can choose if you already have the notes. But if it's not there, just let me know. Open a ticket, and I'll be glad to give you a coupon for a little bit of money off, because why would you need to buy those twice? That's what's there for those. Let's flip back over to the lab that's set up. Here's the lab that's now running. I know it's hard to see because my head's in the way, but I'm going to make this text a little bit bigger so you can kind of see what's going on. And on the right side, in fact, why don't I get rid of my head? Wouldn't that be nice if it just wasn't there? That's what the rest of the world says. So here is the lab itself, and it tells you this is use Task Manager. That sounds good. Let's go to the next step, which is analyze the processes. And it tells you at the lock screen with the Morgan account name displayed, type password in the password field. That's $$W0RD in the password field and press enter. Well, I can tell you I'm going to get it wrong to begin with. But what's nice is see how it's green and it has a little T next to it. This means if that's where your cursor currently is, you can simply click the word password and look, it typed it in on its own. Thank you, lab, for not having me type in ridiculous things that don't help me with the lab. Instead, I can focus on doing the lab instead of focus on typing $ and the number 0 and getting it wrong to begin with. Let's look at we did step number 1, so I'm going to go check. We're good with that. Step number 2, to launch Task Manager, type task into the search box on the taskbar and select the Task Manager app. I think I can probably type this one on my own. So we'll type in task, and right there at the top, Task Manager. That's the one I would like to use. There it is. And it brings up Task Manager. In fact, nothing is really being used right now. Oh, we'll click number 2, so we're done with that. Click more details to expand the view, maximize the window. There's lots of things we can do. Well, more details to maximize the view. There it is. Boy, there's a lot going on there. And then it says, even tells you, click that thing, the circle. All right, we click the more details and the maximize. Locate the background process Windows security notification icon. Then you can just keep going through this and learn how to use Task Manager. It's really a nice virtualized environment. And as I mentioned, it's not on a rail. This is a real version of Windows. So if you wanted to bring up the file manager is here. You want to click pictures or documents or downloads or desktop, you can do anything on here. In fact, a lot of the screenshots on my video course, sometimes I need something very complex, but I know there's a lab already existing for it. I'll load up a virtualized lab and then load up other utilities and just get screenshots of those utilities, which is really great. This is all, by the way, in a browser. So there's nothing you have to load on your machine. If you've already got a browser, this will work great. So those are the labs from CompTIA. So if you're looking for something like that where you can run through some labs, they're just all set to go. And as you saw, there was a huge list there. And I document that list of all of the labs on my site. You can go through and see what comes with this. Well, for the Core 1, these are all the labs you get. And then for Core 2, these are all the labs you get. So there's a lot of labs on the single. It's not just one or two thrown in there. That is indeed Cert Master Labs is what that's called. On my site, it's a bundle that I put together called the Interactive Lab Pack. And the Lab Pack includes Cert Master Labs for A+, and Professor Messer's A+ Course Notes PDF. So you got an option there if you're getting those labs. It's all on my website. You'll find that. And I like them. I like these labs probably better than any other virtualized lab system I've ever used, and I think I've used all of them at this point. And it's the little things like having the check mark so you can keep track of where you were. And instead of typing things in, you can simply click it and it will type for you. Those little niceties, those make it very comfortable and much easier to use than perhaps some of the third-party labs that I've used in the past. They're pretty nice to have. So if you are trying to look for a set of labs and you want to evaluate what's there, I think those are pretty good. And I have a video on my website for the Security Plus lab. So if you wanted more detail of that, that'd be a good place to go. Question in the chat room from Jerry. Are the questions in the 1101 and 1102 the same as the 1001 and 1002? Well, they are not. Well, they sort of are, and they are not. There's a little bit of both. The 1101 and 1102 exams are about 30 and 40% different or added number of exam objectives. So the 1101 contains 30% new content. The 1102 contains 40% new content. But that means for the 1102, 60% of the exam objectives are effectively the same as they were. So it's the same things, but now 40% of it has been added on and changed and is new. So if you were to look at a set of practice exams for an older exam, you'd be missing 40% of the content. So that's the big difference. That's why as I'm going through right now and rewriting quite a bit of my practice exams books, I'm effectively rewriting about 40% of these books. I'm also updating other questions in my books because some of the other questions that are part of the 60% reference some topics that have since been removed from the exam. So I have to update those questions too. So I'm actually doing much more than just 40%. I'm probably doing half the book's going to be brand new when we get around to it. So it'd be pretty good. In the chat room, Hugo asks, would we get Windows 8 or 8.1 questions in any 1101 and 1102? Or is it just Windows 10 and Windows 11? Well, I'm quickly on my side going to bring up a set of the exam objectives for 1102 to help answer that question for us. So I'm going to bring up, just so you can see it, the CompTIA A+ Certification Exam Core 2 Objectives. This is for the 220-1102. So this is our newer exam version. And it tells you a lot about the exam, what you should know, the accreditation, the development, materials use policy, and they tell you these exams we list everything on here, but we could go outside this list. It's pretty much what they say. As it turns out, they really don't do that, though. They pretty much stick to this list, which is great. Or keep scrolling, keep scrolling, keep scrolling. Note on Windows 11. Versions of Microsoft Windows that are not end of mainstream support, as determined by Microsoft, up to and including Windows 11, are intended content areas of the certification. As such, objectives in which a specific version of Microsoft Windows is not indicated in the main objective title can include content related to Windows 10 and Windows 11 as it relates to the job role. So there's your answer, is that you will not get Windows 7, Windows 8 or 8.1 on the 1100 series exams. They focus on Windows 10 and Windows 11, which effectively are the same version of Windows. I know there's a difference and there's things in the front end that are dramatically different, but on the back end and the default options that we use and the utilities that are available, if you know Windows 10, you effectively know Windows 11 as well. There are minor differences in things like the settings, but those differences are indeed minor. There's not much of a difference. So I'll give you an example. In Windows 10, under settings is a different set in some cases than Windows 11. There's different things you would click under settings to get to those. And I describe those in my video. I will tell you if you need to start this under settings, Windows 10 you choose this, and Windows 11 you choose this. Or if it's the same, I say in both of them, you just do the same thing. Settings, devices, or whatever it happens to be. Those are effectively identical, which was sort of the surprising part. You know, Microsoft said when they introduced Windows 10, this is our last Windows version. We'll never have another Windows version but Windows 10. Windows 10 is everything we will ever need. We will never change it. It will always be Windows. No, here's Windows 11. Sorry, I forget what we said. I know we said Windows 10, and that was the last one. We were kidding. We didn't think about revenue. We need upgrades. So we're going to change this to Windows 11 so that people will buy it. Sorry, what were we thinking? That was just crazy. I don't know. We went off on a tangent. That was ridiculous. Windows 11 is where we are, and we'll just keep doing more Windows versions through the years. In the meantime, of course, Apple over here has been running OS 10 for over 10 years, and it's just always been OS 10. Will Apple ever introduce an OS 11? Well, if they do, for those of you that are Apple users, you don't pay for your operating system anyway. I guess you do. You know, you pay for it. Oh, you pay for it. But it's no cost. It's no additional cost out of your pocket. It's sort of included with your use of the hardware is their operating system, and they continue to upgrade it as we go. And there are some functions, some capabilities in the operating system and being able to use it. And it may be in the future we see another version of Mac OS suddenly appear, but in the time being, Mac OS is still at Mac OS 10. Still is 10. Nothing changes. It just always stays the same. One of these days they're going to do Mac OS 11 and just the world is going to go crazy. I don't know why they would. It's just a version number at this point, isn't it? It's just a number. Just stick with what they want you to know in the exam objectives, and you'll do just fine. So it'll be very useful to have that functionality. Make sure you're very familiar with it. In fact, I am running these latest versions, and I do realize they're technically speaking, Mac OS is at version 12. Yes, yeah, they do have a version 12. In fact, I'm running Mac OS version 12, so that's very common. Yes, I get it. I realize that. But the Mac OS 10 has just been around forever. Notice they didn't change it to Mac OS 11. They didn't say 11. They didn't say 12. They just started using their names, which I thought was a very good way to do it. They sort of once you get past 10, now the numbers are just sort of getting bigger and more ridiculous. So I love that they didn't do that. So I'm running Mac OS 12. So just so you're aware. So I understand. I understand what Apple's doing. I know that there are versions beyond 10, but notice they stopped calling it 10 at Mac OS 10. They didn't call it Mac OS 11. Even though if you look at the about, in fact, let's look at my about. Since we're here, since we're talking about Mac OS, let's look at what I'm running. I'm not even running the latest version. I got to update this tonight, I think. So on my system, I'm running not Mac OS 12 or 12.4, because that would not be the right version. Hold on a moment. Let me fix a few things on my screen so we can actually look at this. So Mac OS on my computer, thank you for your patience here, is, we got that up on the screen, Mac OS version 12.4. But it's not Mac OS 12. It's Mac OS Monterey. So that's how they do it. So instead of applying a number to it, they just give it a name. Even though behind the scenes, of course, there's a number there. For those of you that do some Mac OS development, and occasionally I'll poke around in there to see how uneducated I am about the development process, I'll try doing my own applications, and that's where you really run into a lot of the underlying numbers and specifics regarding those operating systems. But for the purpose of your 1101, 1102, the version of Mac OS doesn't matter. The version of Linux doesn't matter. But for Windows, the version does matter, and it's Windows 10 and Windows 11. That answers your question, if you're familiar with that. So that is the scope or the idea behind those versions. Hopefully that's given you some perspective. We have some more time here. How do you purchase these exams if you are not in the USA or Canada. Well, you're not able to get vouchers from my site if you are not in the USA or Canada, but on the CompTIA.org website is everything you would need to know about testing. There's a testing section on their website. It's right at the top where it says testing, testing. And they give you the testing options, policies, and procedures. Let's find out where we can do testing. And we can do online testing, probably not my choice. I would probably choose the in-person testing. How do I take a test? First, I create an account, I schedule my exam, and during that scheduling process, you can pay online for your voucher. So if you're in another country rather than USA or Canada, that is exactly where you would go to find where the best place would be in your particular geography to take an exam. Useful to have that. Any tips on discounted vouchers? Well, in the US or Canada, my tips would be for you to go to professormesser.com/vouchers. If you are somewhere else, like outside of the US or Canada, you would probably need to find a discount, someone who provides that discount in your particular geography. On my site, it is a set of discounts available for the US or Canada and some US territories. I also mentioned, if you're in the US, I think it's US and Canada, but if you're a college student, you can purchase vouchers at the academic CompTIA store. That's the first thing at the top of this page. So if you're a student and go to the store, it's very different. You get about a 50% discount, 50, half price. If you are a college student, they will check to confirm you are a college student. It's more than just using an EDU email. They will check your status as a student, and if that check passes, then you can purchase the vouchers at that discounted price. If you are not a student, well, then and you're in the US or Canada, you can just come here and choose the one you'd like, and then choose that all the options there, and we give you the terms and conditions here. It's mostly United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, and Guam. There's also some outlying territories for the U.S., so the minor territories also are included with that, but that is where you would get those vouchers. If you're outside the U.S. or Canada, I just don't know. You have to find a CompTIA partner in your country, I guess, is how you would do it, or you just pay for them on the CompTIA website directly, and there's just no discount. It's a bit of a challenge. I think the problem with that, and the reason it's segmented to geography, is probably mostly based on revenue recognition and how it's handled with international currencies. There are quite a number of complexities associated with this, as I'm quickly learning, because if somebody needs to purchase a discounted voucher in the UK, I need to provide them with a way to purchase that in pounds. If you need to purchase it in Australia, it needs to be purchased in Australian dollars. If you need to purchase it in Korea, it needs to be in won. Is it in won in Korea? So you need to find the right currency. And then once you make that transaction, how do you get the currency in that other country back into my United States account? So those are the complexities behind the scenes. It's a little too inside baseball for you, but hopefully it's giving you some perspective as to why they are segmented this way on the CompTIA website. It's not a trivial thing to have to work out. It is relatively involved, and I'm still not sure if or how I'm going to make that work on my website, but I am still investigating that. It may be more of a crypto thing, or we try it through a third party, or I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. If anybody's recommendations or suggestions, I'll be glad to take them and figure those things out. The thing that I find, and this is a question that's come through. This couple of these have come through since we've been here talking in this study group on the chat room, is people talk about the best type of in-person training. You know, the training that I do is on the internet. There's obviously things that I can tell you about and show you in a video on the internet. But some people would like to go to a class where there are other students, where you can have conversations, where there is an instructor, where you can ask questions and get responses. They can check your work, and they can go through things very methodically, and in some cases over a very long time frame. As you've probably heard me mention before, I am not a big fan of what the industry has traditionally called a boot camp. A boot camp, in my opinion, and my definition of boot camp, is a training course that is usually a week, sometimes 2 weeks, and that's it. The idea and what they promise is that they will put everything you need to know into your brain in that 2-week period. Now, I can tell you, as someone who has produced 600 series A+, 700, 800, 900,000, and now my 6th edition of my CompTIA training course, there's no way you can learn all of this in 2 weeks. Even if you don't sleep and you spend 24 hours a day, it's not really 2 weeks, it's really 10 business days. For 10 business days, it's impossible. The physics won't allow the ability to get all of that information you need crammed into your brain in such a short period of time. It simply is not possible. The only time it would be possible is if you had already studied all of this so that when you walked into the training, you were already familiar with these topics. Well, if you spent the time doing that before going into the training, you don't need the training. See how that works? Oh, the irony. That is what we're talking about, is that is the issue that we're trying to work through, is how do we find a way to get the proper amount of training? In the chat room, some folks are even talking about training courses. What about a class where they take it on a campus? So it's at a university or a college. It's a 36-week course. I'm assuming this would be for A+, which we'll just assume it is. And it costs about $3,000. So 36 weeks, that's a good amount of time. So you've got now, these very long, involved, and of course, this is not going to be every day of the week. This is probably going to be once a week, twice a week, once on the weekend, whatever it happens to be. But it's over a very long, extended time frame. And in fact, sometimes, okay, they say that is for A+, Security Plus, and Network Plus. So that's pretty tight, but 36 weeks for all three of those, that's still pretty good. You still got plenty of time to study in that time frame. So that still works out pretty darn well. If I was to break that down into a 9-month, because that's really 9 months of content, I often say that it usually takes 2 to 3 months to get through one of these certifications. So that works out about right. You spend 3 months on A+, 3 months on Network Plus, 3 months on Security Plus, and now you've got it. And it's Monday through Thursday from 6 to 10 p.m. So it's really 4 hours a day. You are sitting there between Monday and Thursday. That is a lot of training. I mean, that's a ton of training over a 9-month period. And you're right, that is very good for having a job. In that particular case, $3,000, not a bad gig. That's actually a very good price. When you consider that corporate training classes, and I encourage you to go out to these, just Google for corporate, in fact, what are we saying? Let's do a corporate A+ CompTIA training. I'm going to pull up a CompTIA training class from just a third party, a place where you would go to the facility to take the course. So I'm trying to find a good one that's not a university. I'm trying to find one of these third-party training centers to be able to do it. It's hard to find one these days. Everybody's going virtual in the things that they're doing. I don't think SANS has a good A+ course, so I'm going to avoid that one. But there are a number. I really should go back to the courses that I have to have a look at them. But if you price them out, what you'll see is that the prices are for a single week of something like A+ training. We're talking about $2,000 to $3,000 for one single course. That is extensive. I found one. I don't even know who this is, but here it is anyway. They do a classroom training, 4 days of classroom, 4 days of classroom training, $2,375 US. So a 9-month training course for $3,000 sounds fantastic. That's great for that type of investment. If that's something where you need that level of investment over that time frame, and you prefer an environment where you're in a classroom, that's a good deal. That's the type of training I recommend. A 2 and 3 week training class, a 4-day training class, $2,300. Seriously? Why am I doing this? I should have made cat videos. This is that conversation I tend to have. Why didn't I do cat videos? It would have brought in many more views on YouTube instead of doing this. But this is more fun. than making cat videos. But that's the type of course I think would be great, is to go through those. As long as it's a reputable university or college, maybe you do some research on the instructor and get some knowledge about how they teach and what they do. What's the website to check your professor? Is your professor awful.com? Whatever they called that one, that's the one you should go to, because that's really what you want to know. Are they awful? I'll check. Rate My Professor is what it's called. It should have been called see if my professor is awful.com. And if someone hasn't bought that domain already, I'll just do that when we're done here, and we'll just redirect it over to Rate My Professor. That is probably a good deal. So those are the classes I like, where you can spend the time, really understand the technologies. Plus, it's all three of those in that 9-month period. That's pretty good, because you think about that. That's an entire school. That's a school year. So you start in the fall and you finish up in the spring, and you've now gone through all of that in that time frame. That's pretty good. Some people like to do the training themselves. Some people hate doing the training themselves. I like the idea of going into a classroom and having time spending it with other people, sort of asking questions and rebounding the ideas off of other people. They probably got a bunch of equipment in the room, so you can lift off the cover yourself. You can get your hands inside the computer. Everybody can sit at the command prompts and work with Windows. You can really see what's happening on the inside because you have the time to do it. And I think that's the valuable part, is working through those. So that's worth more research. I'd love to know more about that particular course, maybe dig into it a little more, but I think that's what you should be shooting for. 9 months for 3 is probably pretty good. There's a number of people that say, well, I just want to do one of them. So maybe that's a 2-month course or 3-month course just to do one of them. It just makes sense. Whatever you'd like to be able to use with those. Hugo in the chat room says, I use a live USB for Linux. Helps me learn the terminal. I'm using Kali. Which version of Linux do I recommend? Well, Linux is a many and varied thing. There are different flavors for almost anything. You've probably seen this if you've never used Linux before, and you sort of jump into the Linux side of things, you start doing some research on the internet, you can be quickly overwhelmed, because there is a different Linux distribution, it seems, for anything. For the purposes of your training, for the purposes of getting an A+ certification, and it's maybe Network Plus as well, I would just simply load up Ubuntu. It is probably one of the best supported versions of Linux out there because so many people are using it. It works on almost any type of hardware. And if you watch my videos where I describe and demonstrate every single one of those Linux commands, you'll notice that's what I'm using. I'm using Ubuntu to be able to do that. And it is relatively, the front end of it's easy to use. If you're a Windows user, it's easy to pick up because it's very similar in style and shape and form to be able to do that. On my systems, when you get to Security Plus, well, then there's some other options you might want to consider. You might want to consider a distribution that has a number of security-related tools all built in. Kali was traditionally a pretty good distribution for that. There are some others, and we can have a big cat fight and complain to each other about how bad your distribution happens to be, which I think it's required when you download Linux and start using it. I think it's perfectly appropriate and expected that you start talking badly about everyone else who uses Linux. So that's what I found anyway. The idea behind Linux, though, is that you could get different versions for anything. And in a way, having that option available, having so many different options, actually provides you with a number of advantages. There's some disadvantages to that as well. But I think having something like Kali available where all of those tools are already built in is so useful. Kali.org, Kali. And I do have a Kali distribution on my system that I was using. I never really published these videos, but I went out to eBay and I purchased used hard drives. And then I brought those hard drives and loaded them up and ran Autopsy, which is a forensics program that goes through, I imaged the drive, and Autopsy went through the entire image to find everything that might be hidden on that drive, even things that were deleted. Interesting, right? So what was perhaps more interesting is I found stuff. So these are very powerful Linux distributions with very powerful programs inside of them. So make sure you are familiar and start working with those. There's a lot of different options out there, but for the purposes of your A+, just load up Ubuntu. Ubuntu, just like it sounds. Ubuntu. And the Ubuntu website, there it is a good one. You can simply download these right in the front, Enterprise, Developer, Community, and Download is what you would like. What you're probably interested in is the first option for Ubuntu Desktop, the 22.04 LTS version. And notice that you can replace your current OS or run alongside it, which is nice too. And you can run it from a USB drive, like someone in the chat was doing, or run other distributions. Becomes useful. See, we're already fighting over distributions in the chat room. That took no time at all. That was not easy to predict, was it? Of course we do. Oh, you're using that one? That was stupid. You should run this one. And you might be right. Maybe I should run that one. So I take all options. I love loading up a version of Linux, trying it out, because it only takes a few minutes to load it up. And then I run it in a VM. On my system, I run it in, Parallels, which is more of a Mac OS virtualization. But if you're running VirtualBox, you're running VMware Player, those are things where you can load it up and start running with it. It's very useful. And there's quite a lot of options available, and I think that's a good one to use. If you have a look, I can't even run my Linux on my system anymore, unfortunately. If I bring up, you'll get a feel for this, I bring up my Parallels, because I switched from an Intel system, an Intel-based system, for those of you that have sort of kept track through the years. This screen in front of me used to be an iMac. But notice down at the bottom of this screen, give you a little light because it's hard to see, there's no Apple there anymore. It's just a screen. It's just an Apple display. So I've got behind the scenes, no more iMac Pro. Actually, it's a Mac Studio that's back there that will soon be going down here, so you won't see it anymore. That is now an M1 compatible Mac. So this is the Apple ARM related processors. It's Apple's own processors. It's no longer a processor that runs on Intel hardware. And what this means for my virtual machines is that none of them are compatible anymore. So I have just tons of VMs. I'll give you a view of what this looks like on my side. So this is my Parallels, where I used to have Boot Camp and testing servers and Kali and DVWA, which you can Google that and find out what that is. Metasploitable 2, a testing server, UbuFuzz, Windows 10, more Ubuntu. I just load stuff up and look at all these, but now all of these are incompatible with this Mac. I can still get into those VMs and pull files out of them. So they're still accessible, but they're not bootable as an operating system anymore. So I now have to go back in and rebuild those particular OSs. I knew I would have to do that. And quite honestly, you see all of this, you think, you have to rebuild all of these? That's a lot of... I barely used any of these. Like 3 of these is what I would run. So I got to load up 3 of them, have them there. So that's it. Oh, you realized it was a green screen. Oh, you think that's bad? You think the green screen part behind me is crazy? You're really going to hate this because I have the ability on my screen to control the lighting that's behind me. So when you start looking behind me, I can do things like, oh, you're really not going to like this. If you just realize that's a green screen, this is really going to mess you up, because then I turn off the lights and you realize, oh, that's not a green screen at all. That's actually my studio. That's a real studio. Well, let's turn on one of the lights. There's one of them. There we go. Let's turn on the other light. You're probably thinking, no, he has video set up that simulates this. So no, it's a real background, everybody. That's real. I know it looks like, if we do this, it looks like I'm in this completely dark room. And quite honestly, behind this, there are no lights. All the lights are facing this way. So it is dark back there, but it's my real fireplace. You can't see it because but that's a real fireplace. In the winter, that turns on, and there's an actual fire. So every time they think that's a green screen back there. And one of these days, I'm going to make it a green screen and have something crazy happen. Just have it slowly rotate, like the David Letterman show did. Like it just rotated the entire hour. The entire screen just rotated. At the end of the hour, it rotated back up to where it was to start with. So that's it. That's what's there. Thank you for asking, though. That's one of those. I do have a wide-angle shot that's probably in my Instagram, but you will never find it. Instagram does not have a very good way to search, do they? You can't easily find something unless there's a hashtag, I guess. A hashtag helps quite a bit. But in my pictures that are on my channel, is there going to be an easy way for me to do this? Probably not. I'm just going to have to take my finger and sort of rotate through all of the pictures I ever made on Instagram. And it's not, you'd say I could just scroll down. You don't understand, because I do all of my pop quizzes on the same account. So I'm going to scroll, and we're just going to scroll. See, well, that's not it. I just keep scrolling, because then you have to wait and then have it load more and then more. We're just going to keep doing this. I'll just sit here for an hour. Thanks, Instagram. Isn't this YouTube? Or excuse me, isn't this Facebook? Thanks, Facebook. Thanks for doing this. So eventually, and I don't think I have a hashtag. In fact, I don't remember what the hashtag is for the thing that I made that was in there. Yeah, that's correct. What was I doing calling it Facebook? That's not their name. Their name is Meta. That's Meta. Now, the problem is that Instagram, for what it does, isn't too bad. But isn't Instagram one of these things that you could just kind of develop on a weekend and publish, and there it is? I mean, there's not a lot of complexity here, right? Instagram does one thing, and it does it pretty well. The one thing it doesn't do well is search, I guess, because there's no way for me to search through all of these to find the image. I'm still searching. I'm still flipping through, by the way. And the way I know where I am in the list is you'll notice the pictures that I put in my Instagram tend to follow the seasons in the Northern Hemisphere. So I'm up to fall. I went through winter. I'm working backwards in time. I'm into last fall at this point. Then I get into summer and then into spring. So you have to kind of do. And it's all really the searching that does that. This is breaking news in the chat room. Tyler says, just passed my 1001 exam right now. Tyler is coming in hot. Thank you, Tyler, for that announcement. Tyler gets, I wish, this is one of those things where I wish I had the sound effects. So we need either the celebration horns or the applause, the yays. We need one of those, or some type of, I guess, some type of announcement with some type of very broad. Oh, here we go. I finally found a picture, everybody. Now, how do I get this picture onto my, can you believe I just missed it? Oh, there we go. How do I get this picture onto something that you can use? I can then share this and put it on my computer through AirDrop and wait for something to happen on my side. It sends it. I don't believe it worked. And sure enough, it did. So just to show you that it is not a green, that was a lot. We had to go down a really long road to finally get to this. So if you were standing behind my desk right now, this is what you would see. And you can see it's a real room with real stuff. In fact, this is very similar to what I'm running right now. I took this quite a while ago. I have different lighting that I use now, but it's effectively the same. to have that on there. So there we go. First, we need to congratulations, Tyler, on the new A+ certifications. And for those of you that are working through this concept of is it or is it not a green screen, this is either a very good fake or most likely it's actually a real background. One of these days, I'm just going to get up and we'll throw something up there. Let's see, do I have something? There we go. So I'll just throw it over there. Now it's on the floor. So that was what am I thinking? That was also a very well set up video of me throwing something and integrating with the green screen. You can't win. It's the internet. But there you go. I have a question for Tyler. Now that you've passed your 1001, now the 1002 is what you have to do. So you've got until October the 20th for your 1002. Have you already been studying for the 1002? Do you have a strategy for the 1002? When do you want to take the exam for the 1002? Inquiring minds need to know this. So hopefully, Tyler, you're still listening or watching and you tell us, what are your plans? How are you going to make that happen? So I want to know, and the rest of us are curious as well. It is a nice G4 cube, isn't it? I have, that is the cube. You can't even see it. It's up there. I put all these things into the background, like there's some equipment, there's some old ham radio equipment, and there's the G4 cube, the Mac cube. I have you can't even see it here. I think I have CW paddles. There's some type of, this was an award of some kind I got for being a systems engineer. There's what used to be chock full of cigars, which no longer is, sadly. That's one of those. So let's see what we got here. Where we're able to see Tyler says, I'm going to schedule 1002 a month out. Haven't studied anything yet. So you definitely have a lot to do between now and next month. Get it done, because now you got the 1001 done. Now to me, if you have between now and October 20th to take one single A+ exam, you can absolutely do that. I think you've got plenty of time to make that happen. So if you're studying for one of those, I think you're in fine shape. Now, if you had to start now and study for two of those, don't think that's a great idea. So, Tyler, you're in a good place. The good part is you'll be able to take these exams, have it done, get your 3 years of certification, and you were able to study from materials that have been out for a very long time, which in my mind is a lot that you would be able to study from. 3 years of accumulation of content is a lot. Take into account that I am just now publishing my practice exams, hopefully in the next number of weeks. So it takes time to get this content out. So in a way, taking the 1002 right now, probably a sweet spot, probably just the right timing for what you're doing. So best of luck with your 1102 studies. That's going to be great. Or 1002 studies, sorry. That's going to work perfect. Yeah, because you can't mix and match, right? You can't take pass your 1101 and then pass your 1001 and then go take the 1102. You can't do that. Cannot mix and match. They have to be from the same edition of the exams. So make sure you're doing that. Other questions from the chat room. Hey, Professor, Tyrone says, I'm studying for Security Plus. Just happened to view your A+ study group that's going on right now. Hi. Thanks for stopping in. Is there a special type of chair that you're using? And that is a fine question. This chair is not a special type of chair. In fact, this is the most inexpensive chair I've probably ever used. It has been a workhorse of a chair. It is a mesh. It's hard to see, but it's a mesh chair, so you can see through it. It's a mesh chair, both on the top and the bottom. The whole thing is mesh. And it is one that was at one point sold by Office Depot, I think. And it has just been a workhorse. It has this pillow on the top, and it reclines back. And there have been times when I've been known to fall asleep in it, but rarely. But this is one where if I had to replace this, I still don't know what I would replace it with. And I sort of hit the internet. I think we all do this when we're trying to buy something. What if money was no object and you could get any chair you wanted? And I start there. This is the point where I realize where I don't have enough money, and money is an object. But let's just say money is no object. We go on the internet and we look. Even the chairs that are super expensive, I'm not sure they're that great. You know, you look at the reviews and people say, well, I tried this, but it turns out it was just a chair. So that's the problem, isn't it? The next chair I get will not be a gaming chair. It won't be a Razer chair, although I saw those at Staples. Staples has the Razer chair in stock. They have a sort of an Office Depot Razer chair version. Razer chair is just yet another gaming chair. Gaming chairs do not make really good chairs. They're just it's not even where they're good gaming devices. They're just not good chairs. They're just not that great. They are not well made, generally speaking. They are very poorly made. They don't last long. They don't provide you with the support you need. They're certainly not good for sitting for long periods of time. So that means we kind of go off to look at other types of chairs. And there's a lot of good ones out there. But I have chair is sort of like you need something to take with you. If you've ever had to buy a computer case so you can travel with your computer, everybody has a different set of requirements. Some people like a small case. Some people like a larger case where you can fit other things. Some people want one where you can easily get at the computer. Some want one that can store other things other than computers. They want to put tablets in it. So there's all kinds of different cases that you would get. So same thing with chairs, I think. Everybody has their own personal idea of what makes a good chair. So in some ways, it's difficult to look at reviews because somebody not liking a particular feature may be the feature that you really like. So that's the problem. So I'm just hoping this chair still continues to work properly, because at some point I am going to have to swap it out. It's not a well-made chair. I know you can't see this, but the arms are all the way down because I don't like anything in my way when I'm doing these live streams and videos. But if you were to look at it, it just wiggles around. It does move up and down, but this is not a finely made piece of equipment. I've had it for probably over 10 years now, which probably is me just mentioning this means that after this is over, it's probably going to fall apart. And now I need to go get another chair. So it's one of those, I think. See, you were at Staples. You did see the Razer chair, as I did. I was just in Staples getting a pass. What is the pass that TSA requires for you to skip the line, the pre-check? I got the pre-check. I splurged, and I got the pre-check because I was looking at what some of the lines were in some of the airports that I'll be visiting coming up. And I thought, if I could avoid the line, that might be very well worth it. Yeah, so we'll see. And I did see those when we were at Staples, which is why you're correct, Marshall. I probably jinxed myself. And this is going to fall apart as soon as I stop the video. Or maybe in the middle. I think this would be much more valuable to my views if the chair fell apart while I was in it. But now just saying that, people will say, oh, no, you set it up so that it would fall apart. We know how the internet works. So I'll just delete the video at that point. We'll pretend that never happened. The other thing I saw, since we're talking chairs, and I could talk about chairs for a very long time. You may be sorry you brought this up. Also at Staples was the Shaquille O'Neal chair. They have chairs that are enormous chairs. They are designed for a Shaquille O'Neal. They are these big, leather, fluffy, fall into them and sort of get lost kind of chairs. And it was remarkable. And if you're at all familiar with Dr. O'Neal, he only will promote or invest in projects or products that he personally would use. So he's not somebody who just sticks his name on everything. He always goes into this with the idea that this is a business arrangement. It's a partnership. I'm not going to put my name on it or promote it unless it's something I believe in, which I've always liked about his style. and what he does. He is probably just as good a business person as he was a professional basketball player. I was going to say free throw shooter. That's just too easy because he got really good with the free throws there at the end. But he's exceptionally good with his business acumen is so good. So I like to follow what people like that do. I like to see what they're doing. How did they get successful doing the things they were doing? And very often it's the same fundamentals every time. And his, I like because it's a very similar philosophy I have. I don't put it on my website unless it's something I use. I'm not going to tell you to buy these labs unless I've used the lab, I've tried it myself, and it's something I like to use. It's something I think is valuable. Otherwise, why would I support that? Why would I tell you it's good just so you would pay $119 and then tell me what a lousy thing this was? Nobody wants to go through that. And it's difficult enough studying for these certification exams. The last thing you want is to have to buy something that turns out to be just a dud. That is the worst. And I've been through that with other certification exams that I've taken. You hate spending money on something that turns out to be relatively worthless. So I never want somebody to go through that situation. Let me try it out first. And then I will go through and tell you this is good or this is not good. If you've seen on my site, it's good. And what I try to do, and I'm going to add more of these, you'll see it if you go look at the Security Plus side of all of my recommended products. They all have videos next to them of me using them. Here's what I did with it. Here's what it looks like. And here's how I would use it. Here's why I think this is valuable. So I need to do that for my A Plus and Network Plus too, because I think people see you using it and how it works. They could get an idea like, well, this would work good for me. Or they would say, maybe this doesn't work good for me, but at least you're able to make more of an informed decision. And ultimately, I think that's what's happening. He wants to be able to do that. That is the idea. Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal has some fantastic investments that he has made through the years. Very, very good stuff. Dario says, did you always like teaching? I don't know if I really call this teaching. I know it is ultimately, but it's such fun to be able to take the world of technology that I worked in for so long. I worked in IT and as a systems engineer for so long. I visited so many different companies. I've designed, implemented, and built so many enterprise networks through the years, and just love that part of the job. So telling people about how exciting it is, how much fun it is, and what the opportunities are from a career perspective, I don't really think, in a way, I don't really consider that teaching as much as it is telling people of the opportunity that's out there. The second part of that question, would I ever do a TED Talk? Probably not. No. Have you seen the TED Talk? I watched a TED Talk just the other day that was compelling. It was interesting. It had a story. It took you up heights. It brought you down to lows. It taught you something about the world and something about life, and you felt better after watching it. There's nothing I could present that would be anything like that. It would be me having to follow somebody like that. Let me tell you something about teaching on the internet. It's my expertise is being able to take information, present it in this virtual world of ours, and having it get you a job or get you a better job. That's a pretty small niche, and I don't think anybody at TED Talk would be interested in hearing about that. But maybe so. Maybe one day they'll have TED Talk for people that aren't good at TED Talk. Sign me up. I'm right there now. They finally designed it for me. They've got the TED Talk. They have the TED Talk or TED Talk X or X TED Talk, where it's not TED Talk, but it's your local TED Talk. I don't know. I've said TED Talk so many times that we don't need to do that anymore. That's really the key. If you're ever in a situation where you're trying to find the next thing, it's all about research. And I think the more people that have ideas about not just technology, but how do we continue to build on our career? How do we find things that that are just appealing and fulfill us? This is a kind of a challenge because we talk about the things we do at home and then things we do at work. But we spend so much time at work that it would be really nice if we could get some type of fulfillment from the things we do at work. And in my case, I was able to get a job where I traveled the world. I talked to different people every day. I saw different data centers everywhere I went. I learned about technology with everything that I did. Every day you learn something new. And I think that's one of the things that's very unique about IT. There's no ceiling. There's always an opportunity to move up. There's always something new to do. And if you're at all interested in having complete flexibility and control over what you're doing in your career, IT has traditionally been that particular place. It's worked very well for me. So that's why I think it fits very well into what most people would like out of their career. So that's my goal, is to get you a job or get you a better job and put you in a position where you can make the decisions on what to do with your career rather than having someone else make those decisions for you, which unfortunately happens all too often if you are not prepared. That's important. Do I ever get tired of repeating myself or answering the same questions over and over? Of course not, because I know the answer now. I can just repeat it over and over again. It's perfect. Well, I get to add on to it. It gives me also a chance to constantly think about and refine the story and the theme. So when I went through my career, there were very good times in my career. There were very bad times in my career where I made bad decisions. I did things that were not to my best interest. I just made bad, maybe career decisions. I picked the wrong place to go for a job. For example, I didn't rob a bank. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm leaving one position, I go to a new position, then I realize, oh, I picked the wrong place to go. This was the wrong job for me. And so I think about it. Why did I make that decision? How did I put myself into that position? How can I make sure that other people aren't in that position? And if they are, how can I give them options for getting into the next thing that's going to go forward rather than backward? That's the difference. And this is a good question. How did I lose weight? I'm a little bit lighter than actually, if you watch through the years, it does this. It goes up and down. Goes up and down. How do you lose weight? I just didn't eat so much. It's probably the most boring answer. As it turns out, that's how you lose weight. Somebody's just never mentioned that to me. Like, you know what you should consider doing is maybe not eating so much. Like, oh, there might be a relationship between us going in and how much whiter I get. And that is what I really did. You want to know my real secret? And it's not a great secret. It's pretty obvious. I just stopped drinking alcohol. See, you say that and people think, what? You don't even drink that? No, I don't. You know how many calories are in a beer? You know how many calories are in a whiskey? It's that is the only reason I stopped drinking. Do I want to drink alcohol? Oh yeah. I'd love to have some whiskey. I'd love to have a beer. But it's so full of calories. If you want to lose weight, if anybody out there wants to lose, just stop drinking alcohol. And it's remarkable. After the first week, you're thinking, oh, I'd really like to have a drink. And then you kind of forget that you used to drink every night. You used to have a beer with dinner every night. And now you don't have one. And suddenly, come right off. So I'm glad we were able to have this healthcare moment on the live stream. That's important too. And the rest of it is really what you're taking in. I use, because everybody needs an app for this. I use, what's it called? The app, I measure this gives you an idea of how often I'm using these, but I got the notice today in MyFitnessPal to be able to update. So in this MyFitnessPal, which has been bought and sold a couple of times, I'm not sure, is it Under Armour that owns it now or something like that? But it's free, and I can track my weight, so I can weigh myself, and then I can track it over time and really get over the years what my weight has been at. But then you can also track what you're eating, and it will tell you, here's how many calories that is. And when you do that the first time, and you realize, wow, I'm eating a lot of stuff I should be eating. And you kind of set yourself and say, you realize, oh, I don't have that many calories for the day. It starts counting them off for you. And at the end of the day, hopefully you did not overeat. So it's another way to kind of track that. And I realize that's very detailed and very, you're getting into the heavy the tracking of calories, and people tell you don't track your calories. And I don't know why people say that, because that's how you know how many calories you ate. So why would you not track those? It's with computers, we're almost programmed that everything is a 0 and a 1. And if you put a certain type of input into the computer, you get a certain type of output. And because it's a computer and the zeros are always zeros and the ones are always ones, every time you put in the same input, you always get out the same output. To me, this is what I love about computers. But if you talk to Mrs. Professor Messer, who is a more creative person, she is someone who works more with the human mind rather than computer mind. She hates that. She thinks that's the most boring thing in the world, that you would put in exactly the same thing and get exactly the same thing out. That is not fun at all. But to me, it's soothing. It's expected. It's what I want. And so that's a very good example of if you're in that scenario and you're trying to figure out what you want to do in life. Sometimes it's based around what you like to do. But for me, I like to be able to put in all of this data into this app and have it output for me how I'm doing. So it gives me a place to level set. And it's not like I follow it as down to the very specific level, but it does give me that option. The app is called, make sure I say the term right, I've got it running right here, MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal. Is that what it's called? The problem is you can't see it unless you do everything here. And when I start using MyFitnessPal was many, many, many moons ago. But it's interesting, after you do it a number of weeks, months, years, it's now interesting to go back and see what was there. It's got a lot of foods that are already built in, has a scanner built into it. So if you eat a pack of Doritos, so good, you can scan the Dorito box and it automatically adds in all the calories and the other nutritional items in there so that you can, at the end of the day, see exactly what that was. It also is pre-built. So if you're eating a steak, tells you here's how much of that steak, here's the size of the steak and what the calories were. So you can estimate from that too. So that was, we talk about all kinds of things on the after show. We talk about career. We talk about whiskey. We talk about apps. We talk about a little bit of everything. It's never a dull moment for the things we go through. Question, probably our last question in the chat room, because I can hear the thunder already starting up outside. Well, there is no longer a favorite whiskey brand, but if there was, it would be all of them. There was a trip I made to Scotland a few years ago that was just phenomenal. And if I go back to Scotland, I will drink more whiskey because I'm in Scotland. But then when I come back, we're not drinking anymore. So now it's one of these where you have to pick it whenever we go. Cooley in the chat room, I'm just studying for the A+. Should I take the 1000 series or the 1100 series? If you're just starting, there really is no choice at this point. You should be taking the 1101 and the 1102. There's really not enough time right now to start your studies with the older version because those are retired on October the 20th. And we're sitting here August, September, and half of October. So 2.5 months is not a lot of time. So I highly recommend, I beg of you, do not take the 1000 series. Take the 1100 series, the 1101, the 1102. Those are the latest ones. Those don't retire until 2025. Gives you much more time, just so you're aware. And some folks thought Fortnite stream next week. No Fortnite next week, unfortunately. I'm doing more EVE Online lately because I love spreadsheets. That's all I can tell people. That's how I roll with that one. But no Fortnite. We'll have to figure out something like that where we can all get into a big mosh of folks and shoot at each other and work through that. Lagavulin, probably the favorite. I love something very peaty. I love a peaty whiskey. Super peaty. More peaty, the better. Not always. I like a sweet whiskey too, but I love that smoke. Now see what you're doing? Nope, not going to have one. You tried to get it to happen. It's not going to happen. I want to thank everybody for being here. Today, we finished our Core 1A Plus on Tuesday. This was our Core 2A Plus. We have another live stream happening with Network Plus. Is it next week? The way you tell, by the way, is you go to professormesser.com/calendar. The calendar tells you everything that happens to be there. And for some reason, I have to tell my calendar now that I am not a robot just so I can work through all of this. So I can't even look at these myself. But, another place you can go, and I don't think I've mentioned it, is the events that are on Discord. There is an events group, an events channel on the Discord. Can't see it because I'm not showing it to you. There it is. So our Network Plus study group is on the 17th. Come back for that one in a week or two. We'll do a 17th is Network Plus study group, and then a Security Plus study group on August the 24th. That's when the next events will be. We would love to have you back. We would love to do more of this. There's plenty to learn. There's plenty more to go through, and we're going to go through it together. Thank you for being here. We will see you next time on our A Plus study group. Thanks, everybody.